If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 126, Steve. Chapter 125. The members of the Uchiha clan actually prefer finding middle ground and seeking compromise. For instance, if you were to suggest that Uchiha clan members are too proud to serve on the Konoha's police force, they would definitely object and might even create a fuss about it. However, if you were to propose using the clan's strength to eliminate the 5 great nations and restore the Uchiha clan's greatness through a war of blood and fire, they would be more willing to negotiate and might agree to step down from the police force. Lord Madara. Suddenly, an Uchiha clan member couldn't hold back and spoke up. How about you help us secure a different position? We don't want to be part of the Konoha's police force. It's a lot of effort and not worth it. Yes, other Uchiha clan members chimed in. Being in the police force doesn't bring much benefit, and the commoners are always criticizing us behind our backs. We'd be better off without this position. That's right, another Uchiha clan member with the 3 Tomo Sharingan nodded. Maybe we could learn from the neighboring Hyuga clan. They don't hold any official positions, and they're doing just fine, aren't they? In my opinion, we're just too proud most of the time. That's a flaw we need to work on. Another voice from the crowd added, perhaps it's better not to be in the Konoha's police force right now. At least that way, we can have a better relationship with the commoners and avoid being isolated by the village. It turns out, as long as you appear more extreme than the Uchiha clan, they become more cooperative. If this were in the past, even Fang Mo might have agreed. However, the current situation is quite unique. Fang Mo indeed has ambitions concerning the daimyo of the 5 great nations. Considering the Uchiha clan's expertise in genjutsu, they are the most suitable for the job. Didn't you notice how the fake Uchiha Madara controlled the Mizu Cage of the Mist Village with his genjutsu for so many years? So, Fang Mo really needs to find a way to establish this team. Therefore, he firmly states, no. The 5 great nations must be destroyed. I, Uchiha Madara, cannot tolerate seeing the Uchiha clan mistreated. Seeing Fang Mo so determined, the other clan members look to Uchiha Fugaku for guidance. The meaning is quite clear. It's probably something like, Chief, you better handle him. However, Uchiha Fugaku has already communicated with Fang Mo mentally and knows he doesn't want to assassinate the daimyo but rather control them to build an ideal nation. So, he ignores the implied message and instead takes a step forward, kneeling down. I, Uchiha Fugaku, will lead the charge and restore the Uchiha clan's glory. Very good. Full of spirit. Fang Mo nods in satisfaction, and his eyes begin to emit a crimson light. An overwhelming pressure envelopes the entire scene, and all Uchiha clan members feel a heaviness in their bodies. This is the first time they've experienced such a terrifying aura. Is this the true power of their ancestor? It's truly awe-inspiring, almost like facing a deity. Our first target is the land of water. Uchiha Fugaku and I will personally lead the charge. Fang Mo says slowly, we'll control the daimyo of the land of water on one hand, and seize the tailed beast from Kirigakura on the other. If they dare to resist, we'll destroy the entire village. About that. The clan members exchange glances, and one of them asks, Madara-sama, how many of us will you be taking? 3 more. This time, Uchiha Fugaku speaks up, actually, it's just to nurture potential members within the clan. The real battle and control will be handled by Madara-sama and me. However, our elite members should experience significant situations. Can I join? In the crowd, a small hand is suddenly raised. Everyone turns to look and sees a hedgehog-headed teenager wearing a headband. He might look somewhat young, but his expression is determined. Hey? Who is he? Isn't that the guy? Isn't he called Shisui? Of course, Fugaku notices the teenager not far away. He looks quite ordinary, just a black-haired youth with a clean and refreshing appearance, dressed in short sleeves without any extravagant embellishments. The only distinctive feature is his eyes, which have already taken the shape of the 3 Tomo. Fang Mo's main target is actually him. Kota Amatsukami seems to be quite famous, and its effects are somewhat similar to brainwashing with a mind control scepter. Fang Mo doesn't know if he might fall victim to it, but he doesn't want to take the risk. However, unlike with Danzo, the boy hasn't done anything wrong. He can't just go and stab him. So, he decides to bring him closer before deciding. Following Shisui's raised hand, several other Uchiha clan members raise their hands one after another. Fang Mo wasn't very familiar with these few individuals, so he handed them over to Uchiha Fugaku for handling. He let Fugaku choose a few suitable candidates with decent combat potential, not necessarily requiring strong skills, just the ability to use Sharingan. Meanwhile, significant reforms were underway in Konoha. Various new policies were being implemented, including the cultivation of crops previously entrusted to Orochimaru. These crops were currently being tested in experimental fields. Orochimaru had discovered a wood release user within the root and bestowed upon him a new title, Yamato. Yamato had two main responsibilities, assisting in expanding the experimental bases and using his wood release chakra to care for the valuable crops. On the other hand, Uchiha's team quickly came together. Fang Mo waved his hand and led the group, including himself and three others, Uchiha Shisu, Uchiha Itachi, and Uchiha Mentai, out of Konoha. It was evident that Uchiha Fugaku had some personal motives. Among the team members, aside from Fang Mo and himself, were three others, Uchiha Shisu, who had already been mentioned, Uchiha Itachi, Fugaku's biological son, and Uchiha Mentai, who Fang Mo hadn't heard of before. Fugaku seemed to want to expose his son to the world. As for Uchiha Mentai, he was relatively unknown to Fang Mo, but Fugaku mentioned that Mentai had awakened the three Tomo Sharingan at a young age and was a skilled medical ninja. Fang Mo suspected that Fugaku brought a medical ninja from their clan to ensure his son's safety. The journey from the water country to Konoha took some time, but with skilled individuals like Fang Mo, Shisu, and Itachi, they reached their destination relatively quickly. The Third Great Ninja War was reaching its conclusion. Gai's use of the Eighth Inner Gate had taken a toll on Mist Village, and Uchiha Madara's plans. Outside Mist Village, Fang Mo listened as Uchiha Fugaku outlined a strategy. We should find a way to lure out their Jinchuriki. Fugaku suggested, we currently lack precise information, but we can capture a ninja and extract information using genjutsu. Leave that to Itachi and Shisu. The plan was swiftly put into action. Itachi and Shisu quickly incapacitated a mist ninja team using genjutsu. However, before they could retrieve them, a massive water blade suddenly aimed at them. Reacting swiftly, they avoided the attack, but a green-haired youth appeared, carrying a flowered iron rod, the fourth Mizukage, Yagura Karatachi. Uchiha Fugaku, activating his Mangekyo Sharingan, asked Fang Mo if they should intervene. Deal with him first. Wait. Fang Mo began to say, but he suddenly noticed a peculiar pixelated avatar on the top right corner of his perspective, the minimal, a black and white square. Recognizing the unmistakable symbol, he realized it was Zetsu, the 1,000-year-old crow. But Zetsu wasn't acting alone, there was a white side as well, his dual nature as Black Zetsu and White Zetsu. Madara-sama. Fugaku grew anxious, noticing Fang Mo's distraction. With Uchiha Shisu and Itachi still confronting the fourth Mizukage, he urged Fang Mo to act. For now, you deal with the fourth Mizukage. After being reminded, Fang Mo refocused on the situation. He wondered why Zetsu had appeared and decided to assess the situation before making a move. Chapter 127, Steve Chapter 126, Bonus. I understand. Upon hearing Fang Mo's command, Uchiha Fugaku hesitated for a moment, but he soon nodded in agreement. It seemed that the other party wanted to test his strength. After all, he was the only one in the clan who had activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, making him a challenging opponent, even for a Hokage of Konoha. With his son below, Uchiha Fugaku didn't have time to think. He immediately used the body flicker technique to charge forward. Fire release, Fireball Jutsu. As he charged, Uchiha Fugaku swiftly formed hand seals and unleashed a massive fireball. Yagura, on the other side, was not surprised by the fireball. He expected more than just two kids to invade the hidden mist village. He lightly jumped backward, evading the descending fireball. Fire release, Phoenix Sage Fire Claw. Uchiha Fugaku, not relenting, threw a handful of shuriken and followed it up with a burst of flames. The flaming shuriken attacked Yagura from various angles. Yagura reacted promptly, forming hand seals and conjuring a water wall to block the incoming barrage of flaming shuriken. Nearby is the hidden mist village, let's finish this quickly. Uchiha Fugaku kept his eyes on Yagura while also instructing Shisui and Itachi. Though facing a Hokage opponent, he couldn't afford to show any weakness in front of the young Uchiha clan members. Yes. Fortunately, the kids in the ninja world mature early and don't shy away from battle. They immediately began to coordinate their attacks. Shisui swiftly formed hand seals, using the body flicker technique to create numerous illusions that charged towards Yagura. Meanwhile, Itaka followed suit, preparing to use a fire release jutsu. At that moment, Yagura dispelled the water wall. "You are Uchiha from the Konoha." Yagura glanced at the three of them, furrowing his brows, seemingly puzzled by why the Uchiha clan from Konoha would suddenly attack the Hidden Mist village. Did they intend to continue the war? Before Yagura could fully comprehend the situation, Uchiha Fugaku's left eye suddenly shed a tear of blood, activating the Mangekyo Sharingan's genjutsu. Yagura was first taken aback and then froze in place. Before Shisui could reach him, a burst of crimson chakra erupted from Yagura, knocking Shisui away. At the same time, Itaka's fire release jutsu was also blown away. "What's this?" Uchiha Fugaku was also astonished by the scene. Did this guy seal a tailed beast within himself? Yagura roared fiercely, and a dark red chakra enveloped his body, transforming him into a terrifying beast resembling a giant turtle. He hunkered down on the ground, exuding a powerful aura. "Holy crap! A ninja turtle!" Fang Mo, who was watching from afar, couldn't help but exclaim. But Yagura couldn't hear those comments. Breaking the Mangekyo Sharingan's genjutsu wasn't easy, and he was in a state of chaos, acting on instinct and the power of the Three Tails beast. Uchiha Fugaku witnessed this scene and realized that things were becoming troublesome. He was surprised that the Mizukage dared to become a Jinchuriki herself, showing that Kirigakure was equally capable of intense measures. "Shisui, Itaki, come back!" After shouting, Uchiha Fugaku's eyes widened, and his black-purple Susanoo emerged from the ground. With a swift motion, he swung his sword towards Yagura, who was not far away. At that moment, Kagura's tailed beast bomb was also nearing completion. Uchiha Fugaku's sword struck the black-purple chakra sphere, causing a bright flash followed by a massive explosion. The impact tore through the surrounding forest, leaving behind a large crater. Luckily, Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo provided sufficient protection. Though Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo was not in its complete form, it had muscles and armor, enough to withstand the Three Tails Kagura's attack. However, Yagura was also unharmed. After the smoke cleared, he maintained his turtle form, slowly stood up from the ground. "Damn, a ninja turtle!" Meanwhile, a bystander, Fang Mo, was astonished to see Yagura stand up again. "This guy is both a ninja and a turtle, and his transformation is remarkably accurate." Yagura's feet stepped on the ground, and he vanished from his spot. In an instant, he reappeared right in front of Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo and struck with a powerful palm attack. The loud bang echoed as Yagura's attack was blocked by Susanoo's chest plate. However, with the release of the Three Tails chakra, thick corals grew at the point of impact, obstructing Uchiha Fugaku's vision. Uchiha Fugaku frowned and tried to control Susanoo to counter-attack, but Yagura immediately retreated. Uchiha Fugaku had to remove the coral that clung to Susanoo's chest, but as he did, Yagura rushed back and struck Susanoo with two powerful punches, creating coral flowers on its waist and shoulder. Thankfully, Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo was not in its complete form, which meant he had only half of his body. Otherwise, if Yagura focused on attacking Susanoo's big toe with such force, Fang Mo believed he would call that move the Gout God Fist, as it would be incredibly painful just to watch. In the meantime, the Hidden Mist village also started showing signs of activity. Probably alerted by the explosion of the tailed beast bomb, many mist shinobi rushed out of the village to support their Mizukage. "Shisui, Itaki, Mentai, stop the mist shinobi from getting closer here." As Uchiha Fugaku was fully occupied in the battle with Yagura, he had to entrust the task of stopping the mist shinobi to the other three. Uchiha Mentai, who had been idle until now, responded to the order and cooperated with Shisui and Itaka to attack the approaching mist shinobi. As the situation grew intense, the Hidden Mist village started showing signs of activity as well. On the mini-map, a new orange icon appeared, the distinct symbol of Tobi, a mask, also known as Uchiha Obito. Seeing this, Fang Mo was taken aback. The Third Great Ninja War had not yet fully concluded, and Obito's Akatsuki organization shouldn't have recruited so many members. Fang Mo suspected that his own actions might have caused a butterfly effect, leading to these events. However, it was also possible that Obito sought revenge for the death of his beloved Rin, who was killed because of the mist shinobi. In the original storyline, Obito controlled Yagura with his Mangekyo Sharingan. While observing these developments, Fang Mo made a decision. He took an invisibility potion from his backpack, drank it, and vanished from sight. His presence concealed, he continued to watch the events unfold. Chapter 128, Steve. Chapter 127. In a well-hidden location, both Zetsu and Uchiha Obito remain concealed. None of the Mist Shinobi, including the rampaging Three Tails, Yagura, have detected their presence. Fugaku Uchiha, who had his Susanoo crushed by Yagura, is in a challenging situation. However, it is well known that the Mangekyo Sharingan is one of the few natural enemies of the tailed beasts. Previously, Yagura was attacked with Genjutsu, causing chaos and triggering Yagura's rampage. Hence, technically, Isabu and Yagura are not fighting side by side. The fourth Mizukage has already been defeated, and now, only Isabu remains on a rampage. Fugaku Uchiha, the head of the Uchiha clan and Uchiha Itachi's biological father, is a formidable force, especially considering that Uchiha Itachi is still a child of fewer than 10 years old and unable to withstand numerous Mist Shinobi. Fugaku must quickly end the battle. Taking a deep breath, Fugaku activates the Mangekyo level Genjutsu, using the last remnants of his strength. As the colossal Isabu is hit by the Genjutsu, it becomes immobilized, and 3 Tomo Sharingan reflections appear in its eyes, a clear sign of being under Genjutsu control. With Isabu finally under control, Fugaku orders it to attack the Mist Shinobi. The behemoth opens its mouth, unleashing powerful chakra water cannons, forcing the Mist Shinobi to retreat. Uchiha Itachi and Shisui coordinate their efforts to further suppress the Mist Shinobi. Meanwhile, Uchiha Mitai high-temperature ash has been dispersed by the wind release, but he has taken down more than 10 Mist Shinobi. Some are under Genjutsu control, while others are incapacitated by his chakra surgical knife. Seeing the battle gradually falling under their control, Fugaku decides it's time to retreat temporarily. His mission was to capture the tailed beasts, and with Yagura under control, there's no need to continue fighting. Besides, this is the Mist Shinobi's stronghold, and their chakra and strength have been considerably depleted. They need to find a place to rest and recover. Just as Fugaku is about to call back Itachi and Shisui, he catches a glimpse of a figure from the corner of his eye. The person wears an orange swirling mask and exudes a chilling aura, standing silently on a nearby tree trunk. Fugaku tightens his grip, uncertain when this person appeared. He shouts for Itachi and Shisui, immediately going on high alert. He holds a test tube containing a Sharingan, ready to protect his son at all costs. As he focuses on the mysterious masked person, he suddenly becomes puzzled. Wait! This eye! Through the orange swirling mask, Fugaku notices that the person also possesses the Sharingan. He furrows his brow and asks, "How do you have Uchiha's eyes?" The masked man remains silent, starting to perform hand seals. Suddenly, a loud noise erupts nearby, and a black, mud-like substance flies over. This unexpected event captures everyone's attention. Even the masked man seems confused when the black substance lands in front of him like mud. It keeps squirming on the ground, attempting to form a shape, but fails every time. Finally, it manages to split open, revealing a figure inside, emitting intermittent dry voice. "Run, away!" "What?" The masked man seems unsure of what is happening, but before he can react, the black substance rapidly seeps into the nearby tree trunk, disappearing without a trace. In the next moment, someone holding a broad blade sword, Fang Mo, rushes forward. He yells towards the escaping figure, "Did you hear me? I want to fuck your mother up." Witnessing this scene, almost everyone present is stunned. Fang Mo is supposed to resemble Uchiha Madara, but the way he speaks seems to have ruined that image. He behaves like a vulgar person, causing his character to collapse. Obito is aware of Fang Mo's situation, having received intelligence on Zetsu, and he knows there are people impersonating Uchiha Madara in the ninja world. However, the same cannot be said for Itachi, Shisui, and Uchiha Mitai. They genuinely believe Fang Mo is Uchiha Madara, and seeing him curse like this surprises them. After all, Uchiha Madara is a legendary ninja, and they wonder how he could break his persona. As for whether Fang Mo is genuinely angry, it's not really the case. Fang Mo planned to capture Zetsu and had taken an invisibility potion before attempting a sneak attack. He carries a broad blade sword for that purpose. The sword contains a material which has the ability to cause brain death and attack the enemy's soul when inflicting physical damage. It can erase the enemy's thoughts. However, when Fang Mo used the sword on Zetsu, the latter became dumb for a moment but resisted the soul attack, suffering severe injuries but not losing his mind. He managed to escape. Fang Mo is surprised by the outcome. He thought the effect would be more effective, but it seems that Zetsu's unique yin-yang releases creation of all things ability may have given him resistance. Fang Mo's apparent cursing is merely an attempt to see if he can provoke Zetsu into coming back. After all, Zetsu is known as the ninja world's filial son, so Fang Mo acts as if he were looking for his mother. However, Zetsu remains scared and ignores Fang Mo, escaping far away without even considering Uchiha Madara. Now that Zetsu has run away, Fang Mo shifts his attention to the masked man. You are not Uchiha Madara. Obito feels a terrifying pressure but remains confident with his Kamui ability. He responds to Fang Mo's provocation, "Who are you?" "Oh." Fang Mo looks at Obito and smiles, "Are you doubting my identity, little Uchiha?" "I am Uchiha Madara." Uchiha Obito is a skilled actor, and he coldly responds, "How dare you impersonate me? Do you want to die? Insolent youngster, impersonating me and even trying to shift the blame." Fang Mo smiles and says, "I am Uchiha Madara, and I've never changed my name or identity. I've never worn a mask, unlike you, who are timid and wear a stupid, ugly mask. Why don't you take off the mask and show everyone who you truly are?" Uchiha Obito narrows his eyes, feeling the pressure. "Do you dare take off the mask and let everyone see?" Fang Mo continues, "Do you think the Uchiha clan will mistake their ancestor? Humph, you will regret this." Uchiha Obito, facing the provocation, chooses not to take the bait. He is, after all, pretending. Moreover, since Zetsu has already escaped, he activates his Kamui and twists his body into a vortex, intending to shift himself into another dimension. But just as he starts the transfer, Fang Mo flicks his hand. Several daggers fly towards Uchiha Obito, who immediately cancels the Kamui and turns his body into an intangible form. The daggers pierce through Obito's body, only to embed themselves in the tree behind him. He was confident in his Kamui, did not expect someone to find his weakness in such a short time. Yes, when he uses Kamui, his entire body becomes intangible, except for the soles of his feet. If his soles turn intangible, he will fall towards the center of the earth, ensuring his death once the Kamui ends. This weakness is rarely mentioned, even in the original story. Before Obito can devise a countermeasure, a strong feeling of weakness surges within him. It is the poison and withering effect from the Minecraft world. Obito can't help but vomit large amounts of black blood and kneels on one knee. At the same time, Fang Mo hears a long-lost system prompt. System prompt, detection of new mod feature, studying it grants download permissions. Chapter 129, Steve Chapter 128. System prompt, new module feature detected. Download permission granted after research. Upon hearing the long unheard prompt, Fang Mo was taken aback. Yes, this was the first time he had detected a new module feature in the Naruto world. Fang Mo had been in the Naruto world for quite some time now, and he had experienced almost everything there was to explore. However, for some reason, he had never unlocked any modules, which made him wonder if there were any unlockable modules in this world at all. But the appearance of Obito had been an unexpected surprise for Fang Mo. Most people in the ninja world had high attack power and low defense, and Obito was no exception. Before arriving in the Naruto world, Fang Mo had actually made many daggers using the Tinker's Construct mod from Minecraft, and these daggers were made with materials like redstone, obsidian, lapis lazuli, and even uranium and thorium from industrial mods. When one of Fang Mo's poisoned daggers pierced Obito, he was instantly affected by various effects like bleeding, slowness, withering, poison, burning, and brain death. Indeed, it was a dagger filled with deadly poison. In just an instant, Obito was coughing up blood and collapsing to the ground. Unlike Black Zetsu's struggles, Itaki, after being attacked by Fang Mo's daggers, turned into a docile state, losing all ability to resist. Seeing this, Fang Mo approached and lifted Obito's mask, then plucked out his Sharingan eyes. As soon as Fang Mo plucked out Obito's Mangeki Sharingan, a series of system prompts echoed in his mind. System prompt, you have studied the concept of spatial replacement, and you have gained download permissions for a new module. System prompt, download of the Geokist module begins. System prompt, download of the Geokist module complete. Do you want to load it? With a thought, Fang Mo directly chose to load the Geokist module. System prompt, the Geokist module is successfully loaded. System prompt: as you have downloaded and activated a brand new module, you have gained a lucky cube. This lucky cube will randomly extract an item from any known module. Accompanied by the system prompts, a colorful lucky cube appeared in Steve's inventory. The Geokist, hey! Hearing the name of the module mentioned by the system, Fang Mo fell into deep thought. He had indeed played this module before, and because of its limited content, he could remember most of the crafting recipes. The Geokist, also known as the World Container, introduced a pale pink gem called Geodite. Players could use the Geodite to create a Geokist, similar to the spatial chamber in the Applied Energistics 2 mod. The box could capture everything within a certain area in front of it, including blocks, living entities, and even dropped items. In simple terms, Fang Mo could use the Geokist to encapsulate his small villa, covering an area of about 11 × 11 blocks. If Fang Mo wanted to move, he only needed to place the Geokist in front of his villa and transfer everything within the 11 × 11 area into the box. When he found a suitable place to relocate, he could place the box on the ground and move his entire villa there. Even if Fang Mo became an adventurer, he could carry the Geokist with him, effectively bringing his home along wherever he went, making him truly at home wherever he traveled. This would be great for players focused on exploring and adventuring. Although Fang Mo was not a beekeeper, the Geokist module did pique his interest. Honestly, he had been involved in many activities in the Naruto world, but the problem was that there were very few people who understood his jokes and references. It was like tossing jokes that fell flat on the ground, which was quite cruel for someone who enjoyed humor. That's why he was starting to miss the Marvel superheroes and Wolverine from the X-Men. At the moment, Fang Mo's only obsession in the Naruto world was to confront Kagaya Tsutsuki. However, Black Zetsu, the filial son, had run away, and Fang Mo wasn't sure when or if he would catch him again. So, he was feeling a bit impatient. In short, he had grown tired of it. The Naruto world felt too barren to Fang Mo, with only a handful of modules he could unlock. Additionally, he couldn't even find someone who understood his jokes. So, he was already thinking about returning to the Minecraft world. However, even if he wanted to go back, Fang Mo needed to make sure everything here was in order before leaving. Otherwise, he might return to find the entire Otsutsuki clan invading the place, and that would be quite troublesome. He didn't want to clean up such a mess for them. My lord. While Fang Mo was contemplating how to handle things going forward, Uchiha Fugaku suddenly spoke up, "There are more and more mist ninja around us." Upon hearing this, Fang Mo looked around. At some point, a thick fog had enveloped the area, and many figures were moving through the mist, emanating a faint aura of killing intent. Clearly, these were the mist ninja's specialties, the hiding in mist technique. Fang Mo raised his hand, and a massive vortex-shaped storm rapidly formed and dispersed the fog, forcing the Anbu mist ninja to reveal themselves. They were standing awkwardly, holding various ninja tools, looking like thieves caught red-handed. It was quite embarrassing for them, but at least they were wearing masks, so their identities remained hidden. Mist concealment technique? Silent killing technique? Fang Mo glanced at them and couldn't help but comment, "Is that all?" Upon hearing this, the mist ninja became a bit flustered, and after hesitating for a moment, they launched a fierce attack. Water style, Water Dragon Bullet. Water style, Water Dragon Bullet. Water style, Water Dragon Bullet. With several low shouts, a large number of water-based ninjutsu crossed the battlefield and rushed towards Fang Mo and Uchiha Fugaku. Uchiha Fugaku tried to activate his Sharingan, but the next moment, he felt a sharp pain in his eyes. His Manjiki Sharingan was already heavily depleted, and now his vision was starting to blur. However, in the next moment, Fang Mo took action. The ground trembled as countless trees seemed to go berserk, growing rapidly from underground. These plants not only blocked the water-based ninjutsu that rushed over but also ensnared the mist ninja in place. Although some of the Anbu mist ninja managed to escape, they were all shocked to see the vines. Wood style. How is this possible? Fang Mo paid no attention to their shock and turned to Uchiha Fugaku, asking, "Can you still control the three tails?" "Yes." Uchiha Fugaku nodded. The three tails, Isabu, had already been controlled by Manjiki Sharingan. If he only needed to command it, he didn't have to use much of his chakra. "Bring the Mizu cage out, I want to have a chat with him," Fang Mo said with a calm expression. "I understand." Uchiha Fugaku responded with a nod, then turned his gaze to Isabu, who was not far away. Using Genjutsu, Isabu began to shrink calmly, and then the tailed beast cloak disappeared. The Jinchuriki, Yagura, staggered and knelt on one knee. However, as the Genjutsu was released, he regained some of his consciousness. The Uchiha clan from Konoha. Yagura looked up at Uchiha Fugaku, weakly asking, "What do you want to accomplish?" "I am Uchiha Madara." Fang Mo stuck to his usual lines, "Back then, Hashirama Senju entrusted the tailed beasts to you, but it didn't bring peace to the ninja world. Now it's my turn, and I will reclaim the tailed beasts from all the villages." "What did you say?" Yagura was taken aback at first, but then he slowly stood up, supporting himself with his weapon. As everyone knew, extracting a tailed beast was deadly for a Jinchuriki. If Fang Mo intended to reclaim the tailed beast, it meant that Yagura's life was at stake. He couldn't just wait for his doom. However, there was a significant power gap between the two sides. If a Six Paths level powerhouse appeared, Fang Mo might have been more cautious, but a mere Mizu cage wasn't considered much. With a thought, Yagura was instantly bound in place by numerous trees. Fang Mo raised his hand and replaced the Sharingan with a regular one. "If you don't want to die, learn to use seals like me," Fang Mo said and performed a yin-yang release seal. Yagura wasn't sure what the other wanted to do, but his instincts told him to comply. He tried to perform the same seal. Seeing the yin-yang release being activated, Fang Mo didn't hesitate and stabbed his sword into Yagura's abdomen. Yagura grunted, feeling his three tails, Isabu, being rapidly extracted from his body. As the tailed beast vanished, he felt his life force swiftly fading away, and his consciousness became hazy. At that moment, something hard was suddenly pushed into his mouth. A strange liquid with an unusual taste slowly flowed into his mouth, and Yagura instinctively swallowed it. Before long, Isabu was completely extracted from his body. Yagura felt everything plunging into darkness, losing all consciousness. However, in the next second, the most potent genjutsu, yin-yang release, was activated. He was supposed to be dead, with no trace of life left, but for some inexplicable reason, he woke up again. Seeing this scene, Fang Mo withdrew the Ender Sword from the opponent's body. Just like before, after absorbing Isabu, the appearance of the Endless Abyss Sword underwent significant changes. The handguard of the sword became thicker, and the blade gained numerous lead grey jagged shells, leaving only half of the bright blade visible. Faint blue water mist enveloped the sword, making it seem elusive. Chapter 130, Steve. Chapter 129. My fault. Fang Mo held the sword hilt in his hand, feeling the flow of chakra from the caress of Isabu. Crimson liquid chakra, akin to blood, surged from the sword. Like Shikaku, this chakra was filled with a violent and malevolent aura, containing emotions of hatred, resentment, and madness. However, for some reason, Fang Mo remained unaffected by these negative emotions. With a slight thought, the liquid chakra slowly gathered into a semi-transparent tailed beast cloak, draping over his body. Fang Mo pondered for a moment, then attempted to form hand seals. But before he could complete the seals, he suddenly felt an itch in his throat. He opened his mouth, and a gigantic water sphere 3 stories high flew out, crashing into a small lake in the nearby woods. As everyone knows, ninjas can use ninjutsu because they have chakra within them. Fang Mo's body was already digitized, making it impossible for him to naturally produce chakra. However, by borrowing the power of the tailed beasts, he could still utilize the chakra power system to some extent. Of course, Fang Mo possessed the Ring of Arcana, so he wasn't interested in conventional ninjutsu. However, abilities like Edo Tensei, Ryan Tensei, and tailed beast bombs could be quite useful. They would be handy even if he were to go to another world. But there was a prerequisite. He had to take the 10 tails away from this world. Considering the current situation, Fang Mo already possessed the 1-tail Shikaku and the 3 tails Isabu. And based on the experiments done on the host, he confirmed that by using the Uchiha's forbidden technique, the Izanagi, combined with reality warping regeneration elixirs, he could perform powerful actions in the Naruto world. Even if the tailed beasts were extracted from their hosts, the Jinchuriki wouldn't die. This meant that he could also extract the 9 tails from Kushina. If Fang Mo remembered correctly, there was also the 6 tails Rokubai in Kirigakuer. Extracting it would give him 4-tailed beasts. Kumigakuer and Uegakuer also had 4-tailed beasts each. However, Those two villages were too far from Konohagakure, and Fang Mo was eager to return home, so he didn't have the energy to deal with them right now. But the Seven Tails Kome from Takigakure might be worth considering. Though not one of the 5 great shinobi nations, Takigakure had some valuable assets, like the hero water, the Seven Tails Kome, and a secret art called Unleashing the Earthly Morning. What am I doing? While Fang Mo pondered these thoughts, Isabu's host, Yagura, slowly realized, Isabu disappeared. I've taken it away, Fang Mo said, shaking the sword in his hand. By the way, do you also have the 6 tails Rokubai here? Bring out the Jinchuriki. You. Yagura realized that Kirigakure had no way to resist Fang Mo. He was not only immensely powerful but also proficient in wood release, making it impossible for them to stand against him. After a moment of contemplation, Yagura said, I can hand over the 6 tails Rokubai to you, but I want to know your purpose. To retrieve the tailed beasts and bring true peace to the shinobi world. As Fang Mo spoke, he extracted the Mangeki Sharingan from Yagura's eye socket and replaced it with his original eyes. The Sharingan is crucial to the Uchiha clan, but I'm willing to use Uchiha's forbidden techniques to save your life. So, you should understand that I mean no harm to you. Forbidden techniques? Peace. Yagura was bewildered after hearing this, his mind in a daze. Seeing this, Fang Mo explained a bit, using a similar approach he had used to convince the Kazekage earlier. After all, every village had its challenges, and the key was to address them accordingly. The Wind Country's issue was severe desertification and limited resources. In contrast, the Water Country faced the opposite problem. As an island nation in the middle of the ocean, the Water Country had abundant fishery resources. However, due to its small land area, its mineral resources and arable land were limited. Fang Mo discussed these aspects with Yagura, expressing his willingness to establish trade routes and provide development guidelines. When the time was right, he also proposed his plan to control the daimyo. Yagura hesitated for a moment, but as everyone knew, the most potent ninjutsu in the shinobi world was Kekkei Genkai. Fang Mo had decades of experience ahead of the shinobi world, and after seriously using his talk no jutsu, he successfully convinced Yagura. At least, Fang Mo showed good intentions, not starting with unreasonable demands but offering a path for everyone to prosper. As the Mizukage, it was normal for him to seek benefits for the village. After a brief exchange, Yagura became a firm ally of Konohagakure. Under the Mizukage's orders, the group of Kirigakure ANBU members who were present also calmed down and obediently brought out the Jinchuriki of the 6 tails. The person turned out to be a languid and elegant-looking man holding a bubble-blowing straw. Fang Mo recognized this guy. He seemed to be called Utakata, a rogue ninja from Kirigakure. It was said that he accidentally killed his master, but the current timeline was still early, and that tragedy hadn't happened yet. Extracting the 6 tails Rokubai went smoothly. The regeneration elixir he used was made from gas tears, much more potent than instant healing potions. Together with the forbidden technique, yin-yang release, Fang Mo once again utilized the peculiarities of the Naruto world, preventing the Jinchuriki from dying. After absorbing the 6 tails Rokubai, the Ender Sword also obtained a new form. The handle, hilt, and a part of the blade turned into a mass of white, wriggling, fleshy substance. To grasp the sword's hilt, one had to insert their hand into this slimy and sticky substance, much like a slug. In addition, the exposed blade continuously secreted a corrosive acid. This resembled the characteristics of the 6 tails Rokubai, as it was a tailed beast capable of exuding corrosive acid. After extracting the 6 tails Rokubai, Fang Mo bid farewell to Mizukage Yagura and returned to Konohagakure instantly using the previously anchored coordinates. This was thanks to the feature of the weapon, Brown Magic. In the game, this feature allowed the player to anchor coordinates and instantly teleport back to that location when using the weapon. However, after the weapon was materialized, the Brown Magic feature underwent some changes. Fang Mo discovered that the Ender Sword could no longer anchor specific coordinates. Instead, it now had an effect similar to soul binding. He could bind the sword to his soul, enabling him to teleport to the vicinity of any other weapon at will. In essence, this materialized brown magic was more like the Flying Thunder God technique. However, Fang Mo didn't mind the changes. As long as he could still teleport, the details were insignificant. Upon returning to Konohagakure, Fang Mo didn't seek out anyone else and went directly to the Uchiha clan's residence. He had to handle Uchiha Madara. In truth, Fang Mo's handling was quite straightforward. To put it simply, just one word, extraction. He explained the situation to Uchiha Fugaku and asked him to bring a few trusted members of the Uchiha clan, as he had something crucial to discuss. Uchiha Fugaku didn't think too much about it and called over a dozen elite members of the Uchiha clan. Upon seeing these eager young men, Fang Mo slowly brought several baskets from the nearby warehouse and said to them, "What you are about to do will determine the rise or fall of the Uchiha clan. Please instruct us, Lord Fang Mo." Being part of the Uchiha clan, these young men were excited upon hearing Fang Mo's words. The upcoming events may seem bizarre, but you don't need to overthink it. Fang Mo placed a basket at the feet of each person and dragged Uchiha Obito, who was still somewhat dazed, into the room and placed another basket beside him. What you need to do is simple: dig out your eyes and throw them into the basket. This will be the moment to demonstrate your loyalty. After speaking, Fang Mo directly took out a bottle of splash-type regeneration potion from his pocket and threw it on the ground. A loud pop sound filled the room as a pale pink medicinal mist spread. The elite members of the Uchiha clan hadn't even reacted when they saw their clan leader, Uchiha Fugaku, using one hand to scoop out his Mangekyo Sharingan and throw it into a basket. But in just a few seconds, Uchiha Fugaku opened his eyes again, and they were still as crimson as before. His Mangekyo Sharingan was completely undamaged. "What is this?" they exclaimed, almost scared to death. However, being elites, they quickly accepted this development, gritted their teeth, and dug into their own eyes. The room suddenly filled with horrifying sounds of flesh and blood wriggling. Chapter 131, Steve. Chapter 130. The regenerative potion is indeed powerful. In truth, Fang Mo doesn't understand the principles behind it. But whether it's Stark, the Jinchuriki of the tailed beasts, or the Uchiha clan, they all gave a thumbs up after using this thing. Perhaps when Fang Mo returns to the X-Men world later, he directly uses the broad blade to help Professor X remove the disease and cure his paralysis. The bald wheelchair-bound man will also give Fang Mo a thumbs up and praise him happily. "What? You're talking about dementia? What does that have to do with Fang Mo's medical skills?" Professor Charles Xavier in Wolverine 3 was already suffering from dementia, and it definitely has nothing to do with Fang Mo's broad blade. In short, after consuming more than 10 bottles of splash-type regenerative potion, Fang Mo can be considered to have established a solid foundation for the Uchiha clan. The next thing to do is quite simple, which is to find Orochimaru and wholesale some nutrient fluid, then soak these Sharingan in it to keep them active. Of course, if conditions permit, it would be best to build a warehouse to store these things. But considering that Tobi's Kamui ability includes a dimension of its own, a warehouse might not be necessary. Fang Mo and Uchiha Fugaku tested the abilities of Kamui. Suddenly, the surrounding space twisted, and soon, they appeared in a strange space. This space was vast, with rectangular pillars of varying heights standing on the ground, like towering skyscrapers. Worth noting is that while this space lacked any light source, visibility wasn't low at all, and it's unclear why. After surveying the surroundings, Fang Mo directly inserted a dark blue stick into the ground. This wasn't an ordinary stick, but a handle made from fused endrium. Yes, this was a feature Fang Mo had recently developed. After being materialized, it not only worked as a Tinker Construct weapon but also allowed attributes from Tinker Construct components to take effect. For example, handles, pickaxe heads, binding segments, and so on. If he just wanted to teleport, rather than using the weapon itself, it was more cost-effective to use the handle. After all, the handle only consumed 1 endrium, whereas a weapon, even if using the smallest dagger, it would still require at least 3 ender ingots. Ender ingots were a bit troublesome to make, and Fang Mo was all about efficiency. After inserting the ender handle, Fang Mo closed his eyes and sensed it briefly. The next second, he appeared in Orochimaru's base, but before Orochimaru's clone could speak, Fang Mo disappeared again, returning to the Kamui space. Time-space Kamui Jutsu, quite rare. Uchiha Fugaku observed the surroundings and couldn't help but exclaim, "Such an expansive alternate space, among all the Mangekyo Sharingan, Kamui is undoubtedly one of the best abilities." Indeed. Fang Mo was also very satisfied with this expansive alternate space, which reminded him of his other space mods. Unfortunately, he couldn't recall the crafting recipes for its mod, otherwise, Fang Mo could have an alternate space like this too. With this pair of Mangekyo Sharingan, our Uchiha clan can finally rise. Uchiha Fugaku's heart was eager, and he couldn't help but say, "But don't get too carried away." Fang Mo glanced at Uchiha Fugaku and reminded him, even if the Uchiha clan rises due to this, don't detach too far from Konoha like before. As the clan leader, you should find a way to ensure Konoha relies on the Uchiha clan, rather than the other way around, understand? Are you suggesting? Uchiha Fugaku raised an eyebrow, seeming to catch a hint of the idea. Have elite members of the clan get the Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan. Fang Mo smiled and said, the Kamui space is like a shared warehouse, and each Sharingan is like a door. If Uchiha clan members are stationed in Suna or Kiri, the efficiency of transporting goods, trade, and even information between the two villages would reach almost absurd levels. Indeed, this was one of Fang Mo's applications for the Kamui space. A spatial logistics system. Compared to the Flying Thunder God technique that was difficult for ninjas to learn, Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan was easier to use. Hot plug and play. Other shinobi might struggle, but Uchiha clan members would have no issue using it. If Uchiha clan members with strong abilities resided in Suna or Kiri, the Uchiha clan would establish a logistics network spanning the ninja world. Whether transporting shinobi, goods, or other items, with a mere glance from Uchiha clan members in Konoha, items could be sucked into the Kamui space. Then, with another glance from Uchiha clan members in Suna or Kiri, the items would be transferred out. The entire process would be faster than airplane transport. Why bother building a railway? Just use the Uchiha clan. Ninja World Uchiha Express, Kamui half-day delivery. Is this still Uchiha Tobi? It's practically Uchiha delivery at this point. What kind of Uchiha clan leader is he? He's a Uchiha delivery man. As for the most remarkable aspect of Uchiha logistics, it's that they can transport other Uchiha clan members. This means that in the event of war, the Uchiha clan could send a powerful ninja to infiltrate the enemy village's rear, then activate Kamui to summon several Uchiha clan members. These Uchiha clan members also possess Kamui Mangekyo Sharingan. They can then mutually transport each other. In less than 10 minutes, Minato, Orochimaru, Jiraiya, Kakashi, including the heads of the major clans, all appear in the village. Even if they mindlessly launch tailed beast bomb while carrying tailed beast swords, they could easily level a village to the ground in an instant. And this is only the Uchiha clan's Sharingan we're talking about. What if Fang Mo targets the Hyuga clan next? Just store a giant Tensagen in the Kamui space. Would you dare to oppose Konoha then? If someone still dares to be reckless in the face of this, then it's better to not pretend. Just directly use the Hashirama cells. According to the original, Orochimaru did research on Hashirama cells, implanting them into babies and ninja. But these cells are the cells of a sage, and even after Hashirama's death, they remained active. They were almost like undying cancer cells. The yang chakra within these cells, or rather, the physical energy, is too strong. Regular people can't control it, resulting in the experiment's failure. All test subjects, except Yamato, died. But now things are different. Fang Mo discussed this matter with Orochimaru before. Back then, high-ranking members of the village, including Orochimaru, were involved in the experiment. They believed that since the first Hokage was from the Senju clan, his cells should be better suited for them. However, the Senju clan already had vigorous physical energy. As a result, when they transplanted Hashirama's cells, it was like adding fire to fire. The excessive activity of Hashirama's cells caused the experiment's participants to die. So Fang Mo proposed a new idea to Orochimaru. That is to use the Uchiha clan as test subjects for the transplantation of Hashirama's cells. It's widely known that the Uchiha clan is prone to madness due to their strong chakra. This is due to the Sharingan. Unlike the Senju clan, the Sharingan has strong mental energy, or the so-called yin chakra. Just like the Senju clan, the Uchiha clan also has inherent defects due to their excessive spiritual energy. This manifests as sudden illnesses and a high rate of villainy. Of course, Fang Mo isn't trying to harm the Uchiha clan. He discussed with Orochimaru the idea of finding a balance between Hashirama's cells and the Sharingan. One survivor emerged from the experiment with Hashirama's cells back then, Yamato. Clearly, he was a good subject for research. Additionally, there's Uchiha Obito, a full-blooded Uchiha with perfectly transplanted Mokuton cells, making him another perfect test subject. Apart from discussing these matters with Orochimaru, Fang Mo also talked with Minato Namikaze about inter-clan marriage policies. Among them, Fang Mo is most supportive of intermarriage between the Senju and Uchiha clans. Currently, the Senju clan is divided and follows the village's orders. Fang Mo controls the Uchiha clan, making it easy to facilitate intermarriage. Although the Uchiha clan may be arrogant, the Senju clan is a bit naive, as seen with Hashirama. By combining the two, it could be a perfect match. If Uchiha ninja are strong and arrogant, the easygoing Senju ninja wouldn't mind, while if Uchiha ninja are weak and reckless, the Senju ninja wouldn't coddle them either. This is similar to what happened with Uchiha Madara and Hashirama back in the day. Once news spreads that the Uchiha clan is formidable, it might be a joke about how they're not afraid of heaven or earth, but fear their Senju daughters-in-law. This could even boost Konoha's reputation. Furthermore, a union between the Senju and Uzumaki clans would also be promising. Both are descendants of the Sage of the Six Paths, descendants of Asura. If they marry, their offspring might inherit both the Senju clan's physical energy and the Uzumaki clan's sealing techniques and chakra levels. It could be seen as refining their bloodlines. Chapter 132, Steve. Chapter 131. Even though Fang Mo couldn't change the entire world in just a few months. Destroying the world might be simple, but transforming it completely by removing all the negative aspects would indeed take a very long time. Fang Mo wasn't interested in waiting here for years. His current plan was simple. First, he would deceive a group of like-minded individuals and then teach them the methods and means to change the world. Afterward, he would return to the MC world to enjoy his time, explore other worlds, and come back to witness the results when the time was right. Having obtained the Kamui, Uchiha Fugaku headed towards the hidden Taki village along with Uchiha Itaki, Uchiha Shisui, Hyuga Hayashi, Abarame, and Inyazuka head. This was the first time the Uchiha clan put the Kamui to practical use. The results were surprisingly good. The elite force accompanying Uchiha Fugaku was formidable, and the combined forces of the hidden Taki village couldn't withstand them, leading to a swift end to the battle. Using the Kamui as a teleportation platform, Fang Mo arrived directly at the hidden Taki village, extracted the tailed beasts, and successfully manipulated the village using familiar tactics. After all, no one would decline cooperation when benefits were involved. Witnessing the might of Konoha, the Taki Cage realized this was a win-win opportunity and readily agreed. Later, Fang Mo had a private talk with Hyuga Hayashi. From now on, the Hyuga clan won't need the caged bird seal. Fang Mo informed Hyuga Hayashi. What? Hyuga Hayashi was taken aback by this revelation. Having participated in the battle at the hidden Taki village, he was aware that the Uchiha clan possessed the core technology of extracting the eye. Mistakenly thinking that Fang Mo intended to target the Hyuga clan, he hesitated. Lord Madara, is this? Rest assured, I don't intend to take your Byakugan. Fang Mo reassured Hyuga Hayashi, patting his shoulder. I just find the caged bird seal too cruel. It's better to abandon it while the main and branch families haven't irreversibly fallen into conflict. Lord Madara, but the caged bird seal is meant to protect the Hyuga clan. Hyuga Hayashi expressed concern. If there are people in the shinobi world who covet our eyes, the Hyuga clan is under my protection. Fang Mo stated firmly, if anyone dares to steal your eyes or harm the Hyuga clan, Konoha will annihilate them entirely, individuals, clans, and even villages. By the way, take this. As he spoke, Fang Mo handed a sword to Hyuga Hayashi. Lord Madara, what's this for? Hyuga Hayashi was puzzled as he instinctively received the coral-covered sword. This sword contains the Isabu. By using its power, a Jinchuriki can utilize a technique called the coral palm, which is more suitable for members of the Hyuga clan. Fang Mo explained, now that Konoha, Suna, Kiri, and Taki have formed an alliance and possess Shikaku, Isabu, Rokubai, Kurama, and the five-tailed beasts, we can do as we wish. If anyone dares to harm the Hyuga clan, you can use the tailed beast bomb to deal with them directly. If the tailed beast bomb can't handle the situation, you can ask Fugaku to deploy a division of his Susanoo. Hearing this, Hyuga Hayashi broke into a cold sweat on his forehead. Since when did Konoha become this domineering? On the other hand, being protected like this felt quite reassuring. If it were the third Hokage, they probably wouldn't even dare to fart and might even advise the Hyuga clan to avoid unnecessary trouble. After all, it's just removing an eyeball, nothing significant. It could only be said that the gap between individuals was indeed vast. After hearing Fang Mo's explanation, Hyuga Hayashi eventually nodded and agreed to discuss the appropriate dissolution of the caged bird seal when he returned. After settling these matters, Fang Mo had a separate conversation with Minato Namikaze. This time, it wasn't about policies but rather about the nine tails inside Uzumaki Kushina. After testing several Jinchuriki, Fang Mo discovered a particular bug or characteristic in the Jinchuriki. To prevent Uzumaki Kushina from losing control during childbirth, Fang Mo suggested using yin-yang release to remove the nine tails from her. Minato Namikaze found the idea intriguing. After all, no one would want a time bomb in their wife's belly. However, he couldn't decide on his own, so Minato went back to ask Uzumaki Kushina for her opinion. She didn't like the nine tails, especially when she heard that it could harm the child. So she quickly agreed to the plan. From there, everything else was straightforward. It involved exchanging eyes, using yin-yang release, administering medicine, and inserting the sword into the belly. As Uzumaki Kushina was the fourth Hokage's wife, Fang Mo specially asked Orochimaru for an anesthetic, a privilege not given to other Jinchuriki. In short, after some time, the nine-tailed sword was ready. At this point, Konoha had a total of 5-tailed beast swords. The Shikaku sword was given to Minato Namikaze, the Isabu sword to Hyuga Hayashi, the Komei sword to Uchiha Fugaku, the second sword to Orochimaru, and Fang Mo kept the Kurama sword for himself. As mentioned before, Fang Mo found the chakra system quite convenient at times, so he decided to keep a chakra battery for himself. It's worth mentioning that the Kurama sword turned out to be surprisingly beautiful. Unlike the other bizarre-tailed beast swords, after sealing the nine tails, this sword had some simple black patterns added to it. The entire blade was burning with a layer of golden red flames, making it look like a holy sword, incredibly beautiful. After storing the Kurama sword, Fang Mo also received several ninja technique scrolls from Orochimaru. These scrolls contained not only numerous conventional techniques but also many forbidden techniques researched by Konoha and Orochimaru privately. They were incredibly valuable. After completing all these tasks, Fang Mo separately informed Minato Namikaze, Uchiha Fugaku, Orochimaru, and others that he would leave for some time, allowing Konoha to develop following the policies he had set. Then, Fang Mo ordered Steve to open the linking book. Familiar black mist emerged. Finally, Fang Mo returned to the main world. Chapter 133, Steve Chapter 132. Accompanied by the gradual dispersion of the black mist, Fang Mo once again returned to the main world Minecraft. After the experiences from the previous occasions, Fang Mo didn't express much surprise. He simply got up from the bed smoothly and proceeded to inspect his territory. As for Steve, naturally, he continued his routine of changing outfits in the warehouse and then went on to mine. During his time in the Naruto world, Fang Mo accidentally obtained a mod called the Geokist while manipulating Uchiha Obito's Sharingan. As a result, he also inadvertently obtained the mod, allowing Steve to go out and find Geodite. Fang Mo intended to gather a few Geokist to experiment with. If this thing could become a reality, he would have even more extravagant possibilities to explore. However, despite being called Geodite, these items weren't particularly rare. In fact, they occasionally are spawned even on the surface of rocks in the high mountain biomes. Moreover, if he couldn't find these items, he could also synthesize them by combining emeralds with pink dye. While it might sound unreliable, it actually worked. In about half a day, Steve returned with a considerable number of geodite. Standing in front of the crafting table, Fang Mo briefly recollected the procedure. He placed the geodite and trap chests on the table, surrounded them with a circle of white carpet, and swiftly crafted the smallest version of a geokist. Subsequently, Fang Mo placed this new geokist onto the table, added geodite, encircled it with a yellow carpet. And so on, continuing the nesting process. After numerous iterations of crafting and nesting, Fang Mo eventually obtained a geokist as black as ink, with internal dimensions measuring 11x11x11 blocks. Upon careful consideration, this capacity wouldn't even be considered large in the real world. However, the geokist possessed a very unique ability. It could be stacked on top of each other. If, within the transfer range of one geokist, another geokist existed, then at the moment of transfer, all the geokists within the range would activate simultaneously. By placing 3 more geokists at the edges of the transfer range in 3 different directions, the internal volume could be tripled. This process could be repeated, nearly infinitely extending the transfer space. Although concepts were often criticized, this particular item was genuinely useful. As long as the placement of the boxes was reasonable, Fang Mo could indeed transfer an entire villa, estate, or even an entire castle from the real world into his own chest. Well, it seemed like he was performing the technique of multiplying geochests, right? False otaku perks, unfamiliar 3D women, wearing nauseating fake smiles, maliciously obscuring content on reading or anime websites in the form of ads, enticing otakus' gazes with revealing outfits. Real otaku perks, regardless of your location or the challenges you face, as long as you open the box, you can return to the harbor known as home. Comfort your nearly exhausted soul with chilled cola, air conditioning, new anime episodes, figurines, and gacha. This was one of the few mods that Fang Mo could thoroughly explore. To pass the time, Fang Mo practically hollowed out the surrounding mountains, consuming a substantial amount of emeralds and pink dye. The final result was that he created hundreds of the largest geochests. He used his own home as a testing ground and, after several failed attempts, he finally succeeded in fitting his entire home into the geochest's range. With a gentle shift plus right click, Steve made the entire home vanish in an instant. In its place remained an exceptionally neat pit, extending 4 or 5 blocks deep. Ah ha ha ha, let the journey begin. Witnessing this scene, Fang Mo also happily left the area. Now, he truly became a wandering player. When night fell, he would open the box, return home, eat, sleep, wake up, close the box, and resume the journey with Steve. After traveling tens of thousands of blocks, Fang Mo stumbled upon a village. As it's commonly known, the villagers in the MC world are entirely distinct from the familiar game NPCs. MC villagers are creatures that lack thought, speech, or any form of intelligence. Aside from trading and breeding, they are no different from pigs, cows, or sheep in the game. Fang Mo took a quick look around and found that the villagers were, as usual, quite unhelpful. 6 emeralds for a pair of leather pants? Ha, interesting. Upon seeing this trade request, Fang Mo smiled and instructed Steve to take out an ender sword. He captured the adorable villager, tossed him into the Tinker's Construct smeltery, and incinerated him. After all, the Tinker's Construct smeltery. When villagers are smelted within it, there's a chance of producing molten emeralds. So Fang Mo cheerfully caught a group of villagers, pushed them into the Tinker's Construct smeltery, and soon obtained some molten emeralds, along with a pile of blood. He then used gem molds to shape them. These villagers emitted odd moans within the furnace. Before long, they fell to the ground lifeless. The damage they sustained in the Tinker's Construct smeltery quickly transformed into a pile of blood and molten emeralds, which were respectively cast into emeralds and blood clots. After a while, only a few villagers remained in the village. Fang Mo no longer had the heart to kill them. The remaining villagers had favorable trade conditions: exchange a pile of paper for an emerald or a pile of potatoes for an emerald. With the bamboo mod, paper was quite common. After all, a few bamboo shoots could yield an abundance of paper. As for potatoes, after integrating mods like Pam's Harvest Craft and Tinker's Construct, using Tinker's Scythe on them could harvest a 3x3 area and automatically replant. It was quite convenient. After some contemplation, Fang Mo decided to temporarily reside here. Thus, he opened the geochest, relocated his territory next to the village, and settled in. As mentioned earlier, Fang Mo was getting a bit bored alone, so he planned to explore auto farming. The zombie pigman tower had already been constructed, albeit somewhat unstable, it was usable. He had plenty of gold and rotten flesh now. And upon encountering the villagers, this valuable asset, Fang Mo naturally wouldn't let them go. Setting up an iron farm, soap factory, and cremator immediately, right? First, the iron farm. Its principle was simple: exploiting villagers' fear of zombies. When villagers encountered zombies, they would flee desperately, experiencing fear. Consequently, a special area of the village would generate an iron golem to protect them. Once the iron golem was defeated, it would drop iron ingots. Simplifying the process, allowing villagers to coexist with zombies, immediately killing the iron golem as it spawned, and collecting the drops would automate the process and complete the iron farm. Next, Fang Mo pondered how to optimize the pipeline to enhance efficiency and reduce space usage. Creating the iron farm was quite straightforward. Fang Mo managed to set it up quickly. Even though efficiency wasn't at its peak, time was on his side for optimization. Then, Fang Mo intended to explore the emerald, let's call it the emerald generator. He came up with a plan to breed villagers en masse and then burn them in the furnace, but he realized this method was quite inefficient. So, he changed his approach. In the Tinker's Construct Smeltery, villagers wouldn't only drop emeralds upon death. Instead, molten emeralds and blood would be generated in the furnace each time they were injured. This was rather straightforward. Fang Mo sent Steve on a mission to find the Fountain of Life. This was a unique item in the Biomes O Plenty mod, known as the Sacred Spring. Curiously, it was translated as a hot spring in the mod. It was a clear blue liquid that, upon contact, restored creatures' health. In the Biomes O Plenty mod, the Sacred Spring's healing effect was incredibly potent, even surpassing hot springs from other mods. However, there was a catch. They were exceedingly rare. Despite the Biomes O Plenty mod introducing nearly 100 different terrains to the game, only the Alps and Magic Forest biomes could spawn sacred springs. Fortunately, Fang Mo was extremely patient. After a few more days, Fang Mo discovered a pool of sacred spring within a cave in a massive snowy mountain. He built a hot spring for himself. And he drew out a bucket, aiming to create a perpetual motion machine using villagers. Fang Mo set up a single-tier Tinker's Construct Smeltery, placed a hot spring pool in front of it for healing, and used water flows or slime channels to transport villagers into the furnace. He sealed off other exits and stationed zombie overseers on both sides of the Tinker's Construct Smeltery. This way, when villagers fell into the furnace, they would be terrified by the zombies, run away, and avoid the furnace. However, in the process, they would be smelted in the Tinker's Construct Smeltery, resulting in molten emeralds and molten emeralds and some blood splashing out. When they emerged from the furnace, they were almost burned to death. After bathing in the hot spring, they would revive. Once these villagers were fully restored, they would be transported away again through the conveyance channels, undergoing another cycle of roller coasters, Tinker's Construct Smeltery haunted house adventures, and hot spring leisure and wellness services. Fang Mo labeled this the Villager Amusement Park. Chapter 134, Steve Chapter 133. After several rounds of optimization, Fang Mo finally achieved his goal of emerald generator thanks to the villagers' unwavering efforts. Now, even the beacon at his home is made of emerald and gold blocks. He has so much of these two things that he can't possibly use them all. Now Fang Mo directly uses emeralds to buy bread from the villagers. It's hilarious, he simply can't finish eating them all. These villagers are truly wealthy. Fang Mo's storage chests for emeralds are already full to capacity. After achieving Emerald Factory, Fang Mo obtained a bunch of pink dyes, created numerous geodite, and made several massive geochest, intending to take them into the real world to play. As for the future world to visit, Fang Mo already had a plan in mind. In the past few days, Steve had been tirelessly mining, but the Book of Ages was indeed a rare find. He hadn't discovered a new world, yet. Because of this, Fang Mo could only choose one of the 3 previous worlds to travel to. Among them, he had just returned from the Naruto world, so it was clear he couldn't go back there in the short term. Even if he wanted to, he would definitely have to bring a comic relief character next time, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to handle it. It seemed that Uchiha Obito was right, his world was a real challenge. For Fang Mo, a world where he couldn't crack jokes or make hell-related puns truly felt like a challenge. Honestly, Fang Mo was even starting to consider creating an infinite Tsukuyomi world, where everyone was a comic relief character. Apart from the Naruto world, Fang Mo still had the X-Men and the Marvel worlds to consider. He was quite interested in the X-Men world, especially since Wolverine had some great wisecracks, accumulated over half a century of experience. But he had postponed the Marvel world for a long time. Fang Mo truly wanted to collect Infinity Stones, even though it was acknowledged that the Infinity Gauntlet wasn't all-powerful. There was a high probability he wouldn't be able to take it home, but even a simple message to his family would be good, just to let them know he was safe, and perhaps even send a gold bar. After experiencing several worlds, Fang Mo realized that merely seeking amusement couldn't entirely preserve his humanity. He didn't know what he would ultimately become, whether a true multiverse master or a madman destroying multiple universes. But before that, Fang Mo hoped he could at least go home to see his family. Even if it meant leaving his parents a stack of gold bars, enchanted golden apples, and potions of regeneration, it would be a way to repay their years of nurturing. After careful consideration, Fang Mo decided to complete the Marvel storyline first. At the very least, he wanted to progress through the events of Infinity War, defeat Thanos, and then consider the rest. The Falcon and Winter Soldier didn't particularly interest him. And so, with determination, Fang Mo ordered Steve to begin organizing the items. This time, he needed to bring a lot of things. Besides a plethora of resources and items he intended to bring into reality, Fang Mo also had a bunch of geokist. These couldn't be stacked, each chest took up one slot. Additionally, there were plenty of ender hands. As previously mentioned, these could be consumed by the void ring to enhance its gravitational manipulation strength. With these two items included, even though Steve's backpack had been expanded, it was still a bit of a challenge to fit everything. There were hardly any empty slots left in the backpack. After organizing all the items, Steve opened the Book of Ages, titled Marvel Comics. Endless black mist surged from the book, carrying a strange sensation of weightlessness. Fang Mo and his stand disappeared instantly from the spot. When Fang Mo opened his eyes again, the sea breeze hit his face. Facing the sea, blossoms in spring. A song. Fang Mo took a deep breath, feeling the moist, salty sea breeze in his nostrils. He then began observing his surroundings. Finally, not starting in a desert. So, where have I ended up this time? After a brief observation, Fang Mo realized he was near a beach. Not a tourist beach, but more of a harbor. Modern industrial facilities were everywhere, and several large cruise ships were docked in the harbor. Cranes and docks were under construction above these ships. Fang Mo wasn't well versed in industrial matters, and he didn't know if these were elevators or cranes for ship maintenance. The sky was already quite dark, illuminated by numerous searchlights, creating an almost daytime-like appearance. People were stationed everywhere, on guard. But before Fang Mo could determine his location, a blinding explosion occurred ahead. Metallic suits flew through the air, silver, gold, white, adorned with flags, letters, and various flamboyant designs. Upon witnessing this scene, Fang Mo also paused for a moment and said, "Does this seem like the final battle of Iron Man 3? Indeed, Fang Mo had some impression of this scene. He recalled that Tony Stark had developed various suits of armor, and the antagonist created something called the Extremis virus, which enhanced human abilities and allowed them to emit high temperatures, but could turn them into living bombs if it went out of control. The antagonist kidnapped Pepper Potts, prompting Tony Stark to use all of his armor to save her." Whoosh! As Fang Mo reminisced about the plot, another Iron Man suit exploded into fireworks in the air. Wow! Do battles of the wealthy really look this plain? Fang Mo couldn't help but comment. These Iron Man suits seemed quite expensive, costing hundreds of millions of dollars each, yet Stark managed to turn them into suicide attacks. I can't lose to anyone when it comes to flaunting wealth. Fang Mo couldn't hold back his thoughts and instantly teleported to a nearby piece of land. Suddenly, Steve appeared, frantically laying out gold bricks on the ground, forming an impressive array of gold. Fang Mo smiled, surrounded by 64 gold bricks, over 1,200 tons of gold that he pulled up from the ground using gravity manipulation. The gold bricks circled him as he flew around. I should learn the gold dust bloodline technique from Gaara when I go to the Naruto world next time. It seems suitable for showing off. Wrapped in gold, Fang Mo flew towards the direction of the ongoing battle. Instead of searching for Tony Stark, Fang Mo manipulated another Iron Man suit and pulled it towards him. "Hey, kiddo, remember me?" Fang Mo greeted the Iron Man suit with a smile. "Mr. Fang Mo." The AIJARVIS recognized Fang Mo immediately. "Welcome back. Do you need me to connect you to Mr. Stark, or should I call Mr. Nick Fury for you? Tell me where Stark is. I'll go say hi to him first." Fang Mo replied. "As for Nick Fury, I'll find him after I'm done here. They are together at the moment, sir." JARVIS informed Fang Mo. "What?" Surprised, Fang Mo realized that Nick Fury's presence wasn't part of the Iron Man 3 plot. Had he caused another butterfly effect? "Never mind, tell me where they are." Fang Mo sighed and followed the AI as the Iron Man suit flew in a certain direction. Soon, they found Tony Stark on a structure resembling a suspension bridge, accompanied by Nick Fury. Fury was armed with an unknown model of gun, continuously shooting at an enemy. However, the opponent's body emitted intense heat, melting bullets on contact. At that moment, a golden block descended from the sky, violently smashing the opponent into a burst of gore. The impact shook the entire bridge. As Fang Mo landed on the bridge, surrounded by gold, he smiled and greeted the two. Fang Mo. Stark was pleasantly surprised. God, you always drop in from the sky when I need you the most. I should really erect a statue of you in the city center. So, you see. On the other hand, Nick Fury wasn't as friendly. Don't tell me all those flying things up there are made of gold. You didn't spend your time looting other civilizations in the universe, did you? I told you, I'm good at alchemy. Fang Mo retorted immediately. I worked hard to create all this gold through alchemy. It's all for the sake of competing with Stark for the title of the world's richest man. Indeed, it's real gold. Nick Fury raised an eyebrow. So, how much ill-gotten money did you make while keeping us in the dark? Chapter 135, Steve Chapter 134. So, how much ill-gotten money have you managed to make behind our backs? Nick Fury couldn't help but ask. Don't ask. Even if you did, you wouldn't be able to earn any, Fang Mo replied. Fang Mo was in high spirits and waved his hand, sending dozens of 1 square meter gold bars hurtling in a certain direction, instantly smashing 2 hired mercenaries who had been injected with the extremis virus. Unless you use the multiple shadow clone technique to pick cotton for a few thousand years, Fang Mo continued. After dealing with the 2 mercenaries, Fang Mo turned back to Nick Fury. Although I don't know what the multiple shadow clone technique is, isn't it a bit impolite for you to mention cotton in America? Nick Fury questioned. Come on, Stark chimed in, Fang Mo even dares to crack jokes about Holocaust in front of Captain America? Seriously, he's bold enough to do such things, it's only a joke anyways. We can talk about that later, Nick Fury said. The current priority is to deal with these terrorists. The president is still hanging up there. He continued. What? Terrorists? Fang Mo's interest was piqued upon hearing this. Come on, I'm the best at handling terrorists. Back in the day, I fought my way from Afghanistan to the Manhattan Peninsula. Just leave these guys to me. With that, Fang Mo drew a broad-bladed giant sword from his pants. Wait a moment, Stark said, taken aback, isn't that a bit inappropriate to draw your sword from there? And isn't your weapon supposed to be purple? Why is it black? Because I've been using it a lot, so it naturally turned black. And what's wrong with drawing my sword from there? This is the legendary sorcerer's 4th-dimensional pocket. You've heard of the 4th-dimensional pocket, haven't you? Haven't you watched Doraemon? I suddenly feel like you're not here to help but to cause trouble, Stark remarked with a headache. Why is it that every time you disappear and reappear, you become even more irritating? Probably because he had been holding back, Nick Fury added. Some of the prisoners previously detained by SHIELD occasionally showed signs of becoming talkative after leaving prison. Yeah, I was really holding back, Fang Mo acknowledged, nodding. It's like playing Yasuo in the top lane and encountering a Ram is pure torture. But luckily, I'm back. With that, Fang Mo extended his hand to Nick Fury. Welcome back, Nick Fury said, shaking hands with Fang Mo. Fang Mo nodded, smiling genuinely. It's really great to see you, Nick, I mean it. Nick Fury withdrew his hand silently. Alright, you two, stop chatting here. Pepper is still in that guy's hands, Stark interrupted. Could you please understand how I'm feeling right now? No shot, brother, hasn't Miss Potts been captured for the 2nd time now? Fang Mo shrugged at Stark and said, you've been busy researching whether your Iron Man armor is effective or not. Why not just let her learn magic from me? I guarantee I can knock out anyone with a single punch. Just as he said this, gunshots suddenly rang out nearby, and in the next moment, sparks flew from the back of Fang Mo's head. Turning around, Fang Mo saw a man holding a gun, looking puzzled about why Fang Mo was being so tough. Without wasting any time, Fang Mo gestured with his hand. Countless gold blocks converged from different angles, heading toward the man. With a loud bang, the man exploded, and a blinding fire burst forth from the gaps between the gold bars, carrying some burning remnants and flesh. Alright, let's deal with these troubles first, Fang Mo declared. After reminiscing for a moment, Fang Mo was ready to get to work. He couldn't afford to let Chili Pepper be in danger. I've been waiting for you to say that, Stark finally breathed a sigh of relief. Fang Mo didn't hesitate. Carrying the broad-bladed giant sword, he began a one-sided massacre. Indeed, it was a one-sided massacre, as these mercenaries injected with the extremis virus were no match for Fang Mo. The virus caused their bodies to generate high temperatures, but Fang Mo wasn't afraid of heat. Some mercenaries rushed at Fang Mo, their arms turning red hot, and pressed their hands against Fang Mo's body, attempting to burn him alive. However, Fang Mo stared at them calmly, leaving these mercenaries feeling rather embarrassed. "Are you familiar with me? You're getting close as soon as you meet me." Fang Mo asked without reservation. "Hugging in front of everyone? Do you want to die? Do you think everyone enjoys watching that?" One of the mercenaries was about to speak, but in the next second, a sword of virtual gold pierced through his chest, and he died before he could finish speaking. The other mercenaries who charged forward to self-destruct were beheaded by Fang Mo's magical sword. He seemed like a war god, dealing with all the mercenaries along the way using sheer brute force. But later on, Fang Mo became too lazy to continue with close combat. He flew up into the air and conjured an ice spear using the 0-degree ring's power. He casually threw it downward, effortlessly taking out one target after another. As for those mercenaries trying to dodge the ice spears, 64 gold bars abruptly smashed into them from different angles, leaving a pile of crushed bodies, even deforming the gold bars themselves with numerous dents. In short, with Fang Mo's involvement, coupled with Stark's Iron Man armor legion, the situation had clearly shifted in favor of the heroes. It seemed like the villains' luck had run out. However, at this moment, a violent explosion erupted from a nearby warehouse. A figure was thrown out in the aftermath. Fang Mo took a closer look and was surprised to see Pepper Potts, who had been affected by the explosion's shockwave. She nearly fell off the suspension bridge but managed to hold onto a metal railing. "Pepper." Stark also noticed this and rushed out of the warehouse, extending his hand as he ran. "Grab my hand." It's worth noting that Stark wasn't wearing his Iron Man armor, his chest was even burned with a large hole, and his flesh was blistered due to the high temperature. He must have been in a battle with the villain Killian, a scene present in the original story where Killian forces Stark to remove his armor using high temperatures. "Tony." Pepper saw Stark and tried to reach for his hand. However, at that moment, another violent explosion occurred below, causing the entire suspension bridge to shake. Pepper lost her grip on the railing and started to fall. Stark witnessed this scene, his mind went blank for a moment, and he stood there in shock. But in the next second, Pepper flew back up with a puzzled expression on her face. Underneath her was a massive cloud formed by countless gold blocks, and Fang Mo's figure was floating beside it. "I originally prepared that golden toilet for Charles, but I didn't expect you to use it first," Fang Mo remarked. To be honest, given the circumstances, if it were a guy, Fang Mo would have to ask if he had wet his pants out of fear. After all, it was a golden toilet. How could you resist using it in such a situation? Phew. Stark, not far away, let out a sigh of relief upon seeing this. Honestly, his eyes had welled up with tears a moment ago, and an unprecedented sense of grief overwhelmed him. It was only now that he realized how important she was to him. Fortunately, Pepper was fine now, all thanks to Fang Mo. It seemed that while Fang Mo might have a sharp tongue, he was incredibly reliable in critical moments. "Fang Mo, take care of her," Stark said. With that thought, Stark stood up again. "I'll deal with that guy." Wiping away his tears discreetly, Stark raised his hand, and the armor suspended in midair promptly descended, covering him completely. Then, he walked towards Killian at a steady pace. Chapter 136, Steve. Chapter 135. In the original storyline, Killian was indeed quite powerful. Primarily, the Extremis virus not only enhanced his physique but also allowed him to emit high temperatures. Dealing with him was certainly a challenge for Stark. However, the situation has changed now. Under the influence of Fang Mo, the entire Marvel plotline has taken a significant twist. Stark had his physical abilities enhanced by the Golden Apple. To be precise, his physical prowess was now comparable to that of Captain America, perhaps differing only in combat experience. Moreover, Stark possessed the Iron Man armor, making his combat capabilities far superior to the original version. Initially, Killian didn't regard Stark's armor seriously, considering it to be fragile like paper that could be easily crushed. However, when they engaged in actual combat, Killian swiftly realized the extent of his mistake. Stark's current armor lacked any advanced high-tech configurations. In comparison to high-tech armors, this particular suit appeared to be specialized for close combat. The shell was more robust and thicker, equipped with soundproofing, shock absorption, and resistance to extreme temperatures. While long-range heat weapons were removed, metallic blades were added to areas like wrists, elbows, and knees. Hydraulic pumps were installed in the arms, substantially enhancing punching power. A single punch to Killian's head nearly shattered it. "Come on, you bastard!" Stark surprisingly used profanity, then fiercely struck Killian's head with his fist, declaring, "I'm going to fight you all day." "You?" Killian was taken aback, forced to retreat from the impact of Stark's blows. At that moment, an Iron Man suit suddenly descended from above, opening its chamber behind Killian. "What's this?" Killian was momentarily puzzled, but Stark's forceful kick to his stomach promptly propelled him into the chamber. The Iron Man suit swiftly sealed itself shut, trapping Killian inside. "JARVIS, detonate it," Stark issued a cold command. Upon receiving the instruction, the Iron Man suit swiftly ascended into the air and self-destructed. With a deafening explosion, a stunning cloud of flames materialized in the sky. However, before Stark could even catch his breath, an orange-red beam suddenly shot out from a distance. It pierced through the flame cloud, slashing across the sky, leaving a massive several-kilometer-wide gap in the clouds. Stark was startled, quickly turning to see Fang Mo holding a golden sword, aimed at the sky. "What's going on?" Stark couldn't help but inquire. Filling in the gaps, Fang Mo retrieved the Nine-Tails sword, stating, "This guy can regenerate, but he's simply too feeble. I couldn't stand listening to his nonsensical blathering." "Very well." Stark could only nod, acknowledging the situation. His attention then shifted to Pepper. Indeed, as mentioned earlier, Killian had abducted Pepper Potts, injecting her with the Extremis virus. It was a timed bomb of sorts, capable of detonating at any moment. Naturally, Stark remained deeply concerned for Pepper's well-being. However, Stark's own condition wasn't particularly favorable. During his battle with Killian, he had fallen victim to a surprise attack, resulting in burns covering his body and blood trickling from his eye. He appeared quite bedraggled. Observing Stark's state, Pepper regarded him with a worried expression. Displaying their affection, Fang Mo, upon seeing the pair, playfully wiped his face, positioning Pepper in front of Stark. "All right, you two have your moment. I'm off to find Fury. I owe you a major favor, buddy," Stark addressed Fang Mo's retreating figure, unable to hold back his gratitude. Fang Mo continued without looking back, simply waving a hand in acknowledgement. Stark and Pepper were navigating a difficult situation together. Despite any desire to jest, Fang Mo refrained from being a third wheel during this time. Instead, he resolved to stir up some trouble for Nick Fury. As it turned out, Nick Fury was far from idle. When Fang Mo located him, Fury was in the midst of rescuing the President of America. Yes, as mentioned before, the terrorist Killian had suspended the President of America as part of a spectacle to overthrow the government. Fury had just managed to rescue him from a precarious situation. "Mr. President, congratulations on your rescue," Fury assisted the man in removing his armor and conveyed his well wishes. "You?" The President began to speak, but a flash of darkness saw Fang Mo materialize beside Nick Fury. Fury certainly noticed Fang Mo's presence, who at the moment was sporting a rather displeased expression. It was almost as if the word irritated was etched onto his forehead. Naturally, Fury couldn't help but inquire, "What's bothering you?" "Stark and Potts are displaying their affection." Fang Mo wiped his face and said, "I just couldn't bear watching anymore, so I came down to give you a hard time. Could you hold off on bothering me for a while?" Fury quipped, his tone light-hearted. "The President is standing right here. As the former director of SHIELD, can you cut me a bit of slack?" Upon hearing Fury's remark, Fang Mo momentarily froze. "Former director? Wait, did you get ousted?" "Not exactly." Fury shook his head, offering clarification. "In any case, your warning was accurate. S.H.I.E.L.D. has become a viper's nest. Just a few days ago, there was an attempted coup within SHIELD. Thanks to Captain America and Agent Romanoff's assistance, we managed to eliminate Pierce." "What? Pierce is dead?" Fang Mo's brow furrowed. S.H.I.E.L.D's downfall should occur after the events of Captain America, the Winter Soldier. According to the timeline, Iron Man 3 should precede Thor, the Dark World, followed by Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So, how did Pierce's demise happen earlier? Was it linked to Fang Mo's intervention in some way? I personally took him down. He was a leader within Hydra. Fury's tone carried a hint of emotion. Pierce was the one who had elevated him, making him sort of Fury's senior in a way. To discover that the person he trusted the most was a Hydra member was indeed ironic. Fine, he's dead. Fang Mo shrugged. Pierce's death wasn't a significant concern for him, given the ample other intriguing events occurring within the Marvel Universe. By the way, where's Stark's good friend? Fang Mo pondered briefly before inquiring, has Colonel Rhodes shown up? He sustained injuries during the confrontation with Hydra and is currently recuperating in the hospital. Stark decided not to involve him in this matter, Fury explained. Ah, I see. Fang Mo nodded in understanding, realizing that the butterfly effect he had set in motion was growing more substantial. As Fang Mo contemplated the ripple effects he had caused, the Iron Man armors flying about suddenly erupted into inexplicable explosions. Blooms of sparks and detonations resembled a display of fireworks, unexpectedly creating a picturesque scene. Hey! Both Fury and the president of Magda gazed upward, perplexed by the unfolding spectacle. Damn, as if flaunting their affection wasn't enough, now they're flaunting their wealth. Fang Mo looked up, unable to contain his exclamation, no, today I'll give them something grand. With that, Fang Mo's thoughts shifted, and he produced a gigantic green crystal roughly a meter in size. What's that? Fury inquired with curiosity upon spotting the green crystal. Take this, Stark. Fang Mo disregarded Fury and shouted, a 20-kilometer radius green gem water display. Chapter 137, Steve Chapter 136. Stark probably never imagined this. Fang Mo went to such lengths as to use a natural emerald the size of a cube for fireworks. Nick Fury also tried to intervene, but unfortunately, Fang Mo paid him no mind. He simply tossed the emerald chunk into the air, then used a gravitational field to crush it fiercely and ignite it. The dazzling brilliance produced when the Iron Man armor detonated, combined with the fragments of emerald crystal scattered everywhere, complemented each other, turning the entire harbor into a surreal scene. Even Nick Fury couldn't help but gaze a bit longer. Nick Fury glanced at the President of America, then took out his communication device. Hill, secure the harbor area and inform everyone to come collect the gems. Although SHIELD had been disbanded, Nick Fury's manpower hadn't diminished. In the original plot of Avengers 2, he piloted the helicarrier that should have been destroyed, heading to Sokovia to assist the Avengers in rescuing civilians. Observing this, the President of America also cast a glance at Nick Fury. Mr. President, I'll arrange for someone to take you back, Nick Fury said nonchalantly. As you can see, this sorcerer is attempting to disrupt the global emerald market. My team and I need to find a way to handle this predicament and prevent significant upheavals in the high-end jewelry industry worldwide. The President remained silent, just glancing at Nick Fury and then at Fang Mo nearby. What are you looking at? Fang Mo was annoyed, and upon noticing the President's gaze, he couldn't help but ask irritably. The President's eyelids twitched involuntarily, then he quickly turned to Nick Fury. Could you arrange for someone to take me back, please? In jest, they had discussed Fang Mo's true strength in Parliament earlier. Based on various indications, given the current technological level, it seemed impossible to defeat him. Not only could he single-handedly destroy colossal alien motherships resembling cities, he could also teleport. According to Nick Fury, he even had possession of the Tesseract. Moreover, he could create valuable minerals almost infinitely. Who would dare provoke such a monster? Hadn't even Nick Fury, the head of SHIELD, needed to find ways to handle him? In any case, the President's quick thinking this time was unexpectedly astute. He distanced himself from the chaos and shifted the burden to Nick Fury. You seem even stronger than the last time we met. After the President left, Nick Fury turned to Fang Mo. Did you gain any new skills while you were away? Skills? Not exactly. I've mostly mastered some unique talents. Fang Mo directly said, for example, I can chew on a cast iron frying pan, provide permanent treatment for eye diseases, withstand intercontinental missiles, transform into a dragon and spew water. Ahem, control rainfall and trigger laughter, seal people in a bathroom and shower them with excrement from above, cram an entire house into a suitcase and carry it away, also tell hell jokes. Wait, didn't you already know the last one? Nick Fury reminded him. Oh, let me rephrase it. Fang Mo shrugged. Now, not only can I tell hell jokes, but I can also share heavenly tales. Listening to them leads to heaven? Nick asked. No, quite the opposite. Listening to them ensures you can never ascend to heaven. Fang Mo shook his head. For instance, the tale of the daughter of the Black Sea. It's about a mermaid named Song Xiaobao, who turned into a black person in her pursuit of the prince of the Great Peng. However, she was heartlessly rejected and ended up as a tragic story, leaking crude oil into the sea. Indeed, your story doesn't sound like something that would lead to heaven. Nick Fury commented after hearing it, so, why did the mermaid turn into a black person? You're not subtly implying something about me, or certain strange movies, are you? You see, you don't quite understand, Fang Mo smiled and explained, the story of the daughter of the Black Sea originated in 1837, during the Triangular Trade Era. As an underwater creature who had never seen land, she often witnessed slaves being thrown overboard by capitalists. Naturally, she assumed that land dwellers all looked like that, so she subconsciously transformed into that appearance. That's the thought-provoking aspect I mentioned. Such stories always make you view the world from a different perspective. And, if you'll permit me to share, the daughter of the Black Sea even secretly learned to pick sponges at the sea's bottom to become more human-like. Wow, even Satan would bow to you. After hearing Fang Mo, Nick Fury felt his eyelid twitching involuntarily. So, have you come up with all these taboo topics? Are you really practicing magic in some strange places? Allow me to correct you. The ruler of hell in your world is called Mephisto. Fang Mo said directly, and even if Mephisto were to come, he'd still have to call me Big Brother. Can hell's pathetic dimension compare to my world? It's not even worth the shoes. Does hell really exist? Upon hearing this, Nick Fury was also somewhat surprised. Do you want to go? Fang Mo asked with interest. If you do, how about I tell you a few more jokes, like stories about Adolf ascending to heaven? Can he even ascend to heaven? Nick was astonished. Why not? Fang Mo countered, he personally used a gun to kill himself. Can't he go to heaven? All jokes, if this offended please tell me. Nick Fury rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. He decided to stop bantering with Fang Mo. Alright, I know you've probably been holding back for a while, but we can discuss random things later. For now, let's talk about something serious. Oh, sure. Fang Mo agreed with a nod. He was playing along, and his playful antics had helped alleviate some of the boredom he'd felt in the Naruto world. So, you've just returned, right? Nick Fury inquired. Yeah, I haven't even been back home. Fang Mo said, and then suddenly realized, wait a minute, I think my home got blown up. Regardless, stay at my place tonight. Nick Fury suggested, your egg is still in my safe house. It's already managed to take out 7 ostriches. My agents couldn't handle it, so now it's in an incubator. I completely forgot about that. After hearing Nick Fury's words, Fang Mo finally recalled. Yes, he was in the middle of experimenting with making the dragon egg real when he went to Asgard, a mod paradise. And he completely forgot about it after getting good mod items. Thankfully, Nick Fury reminded him, otherwise, who knows when he would have remembered. In any case, for the sake of the dragon egg, Fang Mo agreed to Nick Fury's invitation. After all, he had nowhere else to stay at the moment. Even if he wanted to ask Stark for a mansion and put it into his geochest, he'd have to wait until tomorrow. Stark was obviously preoccupied with pepper pots at the moment, and Fang Mo would just be fed a mouthful of dog food if he went there. Nick Fury didn't stay at the harbor overnight. With Natasha and Barton agents around, there was no need for him to personally manage picking up the emeralds. As for Fang Mo's gold bars, Nick Fury was tempted too, but Fang Mo didn't throw them this time. He simply waved his hand and sucked them back into his storage space. That left Nick Fury a bit disappointed. But he didn't say much, leading Fang Mo to his safe house. It was a library located in the suburbs. It truly was a place that hardly anyone would notice. Nick Fury pressed a key slightly, and a nearby bookshelf suddenly moved aside. He then led Fang Mo inside. Almost everyone, be it Hydra or Congress, believes I'm dead. As Nick Fury walked down, he told Fang Mo, currently, apart from the Avengers team and my agents, only the President knows that I'm alive. You've been keeping a low profile. Fang Mo looked around at the environment. It was just an underground safe house, not a secretive underground research facility. It was more like an underground warehouse. However, there were indeed quite a few contraband items here. Fang Mo looked around and quickly saw a giant incubator. Different from ordinary incubators, this one was over 2 meters tall, like a closed explosion-proof experiment chamber. All sides were covered with thick bulletproof glass, filled with straw, and several heating pipes above were maintaining the temperature. And as for the dragon egg that Fang Mo had forgotten for so long, it lay quietly there. Chapter 138, Steve. Chapter 137. Frankly speaking, Fang Mo had indeed forgotten about this dragon egg. After all, Asgard's allure was simply too captivating, and the ease of unlocking modules with just a touch had sidetracked him. Later, upon returning to Earth, before the memory of the dragon egg could resurface, Stark suddenly fell ill. Without hesitation, Fang Mo promptly used his sword as a surgery knife to provide medical aid. This was followed by the unexpected delight brought about by the reality experiment of the Void Ring, as well as the Battle of New York in the first Avengers movie. With these successive events, Fang Mo had indeed lost track of the dragon egg. He realized that the egg didn't hold much significance. His knowledge of it was limited to utilizing certain industrial modules for power generation and crafting peculiar things. So, could you explain it to me? Standing beside Fang Mo, Nick Fury observed the incubation chamber not far away. The egg you left behind, what sort of creature is developing inside? If the experiment went according to plan, it should be incubating an Ender Dragon, Fang Mo straightforwardly responded. Ender Dragon? Nick Fury displayed interest in this unfamiliar creature. Is it akin to a fantasy creature, like those gigantic dragons often mentioned in classical legendary novels? Somewhat, Fang Mo nodded. You're familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, right? It's pretty much like what's described in there. As a wizard, wouldn't it be reasonable for me to have a dragon as a mount? I've heard of that. Nick Fury said, one of my subordinates is quite a fan of that game. So, are you planning to hatch a red dragon? But the Ender Dragon isn't red, Fang Mo looked at Nick Fury, you clearly misunderstood. My dragon egg is black-purple. If a red dragon were to hatch from it, wouldn't that lead to trouble? So, what exactly is it? Nidhogg. Fang Mo shrugged. Nick Fury fell silent upon hearing this. Noticing Nick Fury's reaction, Fang Mo contemplated, shall I put it in a different way? Could you accept the term Father Dead Dragon? https://m.bilibili.com/video/bv1ff41167kh. Why not just say it's a black dragon? Nick Fury sighed. Actually, you make a valid point. The Ender Dragon is a black dragon, so Endermen are humorously called mischievous people. Fang Mo thoughtfully stroked his chin, no wonder Endermen steal my grass blocks, and can teleport. There's a connection there. So, you're implying that? Nick Fury couldn't help but start to mock, but before he could finish his sentence, the dragon egg not far away suddenly twitched. It immediately drew the attention of both of them. The egg within the incubation chamber, previously motionless, began to shake. A burst of purple-black light fragments erupted from it. The egg started to frenziedly fly around, teleporting and colliding with the bulletproof glass. This resulted in resounding crashes, and even the glass developed noticeable cracks. Oh, this. Observing this scene, Fang Mo realized how those ostriches had probably met their end. However, the egg's shell was remarkably resilient. The intense force caused the entire incubation chamber to shake, yet the egg remained unscathed. Has it been behaving like this recently? Fang Mo inquired, looking at the restless egg within the incubation chamber. He then turned to Nick Fury. More or less, Nick Fury said, but this time, it seems more intense than usual. Just as he spoke, the egg in the incubation chamber suddenly lunged, hurtling toward Fang Mo's direction. With a deafening crash, the several hundred-pound incubation chamber toppled over, and the egg continued its frenzied teleporting and crashing within it. Aren't you going to do something about it? Seeing the egg's frantic behavior, Nick Fury also directly questioned Fang Mo. Although Fang Mo wanted to explain that he couldn't control the creature either, he suddenly noticed his void ring emitting a faint glow. Witnessing this, Fang Mo was reminded of his past experience with sensing the dragon egg through the Ender Hand. So, he tentatively employed the power of the void ring, attempting to establish a certain connection with the rampaging egg. Fang Mo wasn't entirely sure about the mechanics, but he recalled that the Ender Hand could form a link with the Ender Dragon egg. Surprisingly, the Void Ring also managed to establish a connection with the egg. He could sense a vibrant little life within the thick shell. Through the connection facilitated by the Void Ring, Fang Mo detected that the other side was conveying an emotion to him. It was a mixture of anxiety, nervousness, and an odd sense of yearning. The egg's wild thrashing wasn't arbitrary, the little creature within was agitated due to a certain degree of obstruction in its incubation and growth. Simplistically put, the real world lacked the elements required for the incubation and birth of the Ender Dragon. Considering Minecraft lore, Ender Dragons could experience resurrection. This resurrection entailed a ritual involving placing End crystals on the End portal, leading to the surroundings being refreshed and the Ender Dragon's revival. However, if you approached it differently, the Ender Dragon wasn't undergoing resurrection, it was being rehatched. I've formulated a solution. Turning to Nick Fury, Fang Mo stated, however, I'll need a spacious area. I'm uncertain if a multitude of large, hard, pillar-like objects might abruptly materialize. Hence, I need some help. Where do you intend to go? Nick Fury inquired curiously. I'm seeking assistance from someone. Fang Mo said, reaching for a space stone from behind him. Stay here, I'm headed to Camartage. What? Nick Fury was taken aback. Nevertheless, Fang Mo simply disregarded him, clutching the space stone and closing his eyes. Drawing from prior experience, Fang Mo employed the void field to communicate with the unique privilege of the space stone. Before long, the void ring resonated intriguingly with the space stone. Recalling the representation of Camartage in the Marvel movies, Fang Mo next found himself enveloped in blue-black spatial mist. In an instant, his form was consumed, and as the mist dissipated, Fang Mo vanished from his initial location. On the other side, in Camartage, the blue-black mist swiftly vanished, and Fang Mo emerged in a courtyard. This area seemed to be Camartage's training grounds for sorcerers. Previously, they had been practicing the sling ring and other fundamental magic applications. However, Fang Mo's sudden appearance had put everyone on high alert. Sorcerers possessing keen perception immediately realized that Fang Mo wasn't an ordinary human. While he maintained a human form, his essence exuded an otherworldly aura. Coupled with his sudden arrival, he was unmistakably indicative as an otherworldly being. In an instant, they prepared for battle, conjuring 2 tangerine magic circles and focusing their gaze intently on Fang Mo. Fang Mo, however, didn't pay much attention to these sorcerers. Instead, he was fixated on the space stone in his hand. This space stone is surprisingly useful. Based on the Marvel movies, the space stone allowed its bearer to travel to any known location within the universe. Indeed, it seemed to work quite effectively, the sensation of being able to go wherever he wanted was undeniable. The only disappointment was that this object became useless once taken out of the Marvel universe. Shaking his head, Fang Mo promptly stowed the space stone and then looked at the group of sorcerers before him. Why are you all staring at me like that? Go back to your world, demon! One of the sorcerers retorted sharply, conjuring an orange magic whip. This place doesn't belong to. Before he could finish his sentence, a vermilion-colored portal suddenly materialized. Subsequently, the Ancient One emerged from within, and upon spotting Fang Mo, she appeared momentarily bewildered. However, she swiftly initiated magic, placing both her hands on the ground, and swiftly transported herself and Fang Mo to a mirror dimension. You've returned to this world again. Within the mirror dimension, the Ancient One questioned Fang Mo. Why did you suddenly come here? Oh, I need a favor, Fang Mo replied casually, lifting the dragon egg in his hand. I'm planning to hatch a little pet for fun, but the ritual might be a bit peculiar. I thought using the mirror dimension would be more convenient, so I came to find you. What kind of ritual? A sacrifice one. Ancient One's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Nothing like that, just a regular hatching. Fang Mo shrugged. But I'm not sure if a bunch of big, hard, pillar-like objects will suddenly appear, so I need you to open a mirror dimension to help block them. Ancient One didn't say anything, but she appeared to be exasperated. I think this should work. Should I just go ahead and start? Fang Mo looked around. Although this was Camartage's training ground, it had clearly turned into a mirror dimension. Also, after the group of sorcerers vanished, this place surprisingly seemed quite spacious. So, he had Steve take out an end crystal, getting ready to start the process. Wait a moment, let's change the location first, Ancient One hurriedly said. Chapter 139, Steve. Chapter 138. In the vast expanse of the boundless desert, a circular portal materialized out of thin air, formed by the convergence of sparks. No, not another desert again. Stepping out of the portal, Fang Mo immediately voiced his dissatisfaction. Could it be another forsaken place like Afghanistan? I'm really not up for dealing with terrorists anymore. This area provides more open space, making it suitable for your magical rituals. Ancient One didn't catch Fang Mo's reference and stepped out of the portal, casting a spell to create another mirror dimension. Alright, you can proceed now. Never mind, I'll manage. After a brief contemplation, Fang Mo decided to withhold further complaints. He figured Ancient One, given her advanced age, probably wouldn't even understand the reference. With a mere thought, Steve appeared by his side, placing an end crystal on the ground. Unlike handheld items, these block-like objects could be placed on the ground without requiring Fang Mo's touch. As Steve placed them down, they seamlessly solidified into existence. A flash of white light, and suddenly, a chaotic cluster of crystals appeared beside Fang Mo. Unlike the game's end crystals, these possessed intricate and bizarre geometric formations. At first glance, they resembled polyhedral crystals suspended mid-air. Within them lay an enigmatic purple symbol. As the crystal rotated, the polyhedral structure morphed and shifted, akin to a texture glitch in a game changing from one shape to another along with the symbol inside. An air of profound darkness and silence began to flow, gradually influencing the space around. The desert started to dim at a rate visible to the naked eye, despite the relentless sun still hanging in the sky. The surroundings grew darker. It felt as if all light was gradually retreating, forsaking this world. These special effects are impressively realistic. Fang Mo observed the changes and nodded in approval. Placing the dragon egg on the ground, he instructed Steve to set down another end crystal at the opposite corner. In the game, players only required 2 end crystals to resurrect the Ender Dragon, utilizing the game's mechanics. However, in the real world, such an action seemed forbidden. Sensing the little creature inside the dragon egg, it appeared unwilling to hatch just yet. I think older version. So Fang Mo set down 2 more end crystals. With a total of 4 end crystals surrounding the dragon egg, they formed an altar reminiscent of an ancient ritual. The sky darkened rapidly, as though ink were spreading across it. An immeasurable, profound darkness started to spread, making the desert visibly darker. As though all light was slowly receding, abandoning this world. The 4 end crystals suddenly ignited in unison, emitting beams of light that shot skyward. Observing this, Ancient One furrowed her brow. She sensed a vast energy converging in the void, as if something momentous was about to transpire. The entire desert began to tremble uneasily. Roughly several kilometers away, towering obsidian columns gradually emerged from the ground, one after another. Soon, the second obsidian column ascended, followed by the third, fourth. Atop these columns, strange and dislocated hexahedra continuously transformed, ablaze with an ancient, unquenchable fire. 10 obsidian columns rose in different directions, separated by kilometers or even dozens of kilometers, responding to each other uncannily, exuding a lonely, desolate aura as though all life had faded away. Even the profoundness of the sky seemed affected. Amid the murky, ink-black sky, disordered lights flickered. Stars arranged themselves in a bizarre, eerie pattern, offering a cryptic and illuminating revelation. Radiant light soared from the flames atop the columns, converging into 10 beams that met above the central dragon egg. With a subtle click, the dragon egg fractured. A small figure emerged, brimming with curiosity about its surroundings. It inspected its environment while occasionally nibbling at the eggshell, emitting faint crunching sounds. Perhaps due to just hatching, this dragon's size was even smaller than that of an average house cat. It showcased a stunning shade of vibrant purple running vertically along its body. Fine, dark purple, diamond-shaped scales adorned its body. However, from its jaw down to its belly, and even at the tip of its tail, a layer of shining silver hard bone covered it. Its head featured 2 gracefully curved silver dragon horns, and a neat row of tiny silver bone spines adorned its dorsal ridge. The wing frame and the tips of its claws gleamed with the same metallic silver. Perhaps due to its recent birth, this little one lacked a dominating presence and instead exuded an utterly endearing aura. As Fang Mo observed the tiny ender dragon, he felt an urge to pet it, reminiscent of the way he used to play with dogs during his childhood. He squatted down slightly and emitted a series of gentle sounds to catch the creature's attention. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Fang Mo caught its gaze while making a few gestures on the ground. The Ender Dragon perked up at the sound, turning its head to face Fang Mo, who was playfully beckoning it like one would a dog. However, being freshly hatched, it didn't overthink things. Sensing the familiar scent emanating from Fang Mo, it emitted a gentle growl and affectionately nuzzled his hand before letting out a light purr. Then, it scampered toward Fang Mo, rubbing its small head fondly against his hand. Amused by this, Fang Mo lifted the little dragon into his arms. He then gently stroked it, as one would when petting a cat. A. The little Ender Dragon squinted its eyes and emitted a peculiar whimpering sound, ma. Upon hearing the Ender Dragon's call, Fang Mo mused aloud in an intrigued manner, so, this is how dragons sound? I thought dragon calls would be more like, are you willing to break this tranquility, or kill the mother or something? Beside him, the witness to the entire process, Ancient One, remained silent and refrained from commenting. However, in the next moment, the young Ender Dragon in Fang Mo's arms stumbled over its words and uttered a single word, Mom. What the heck, does it actually want to kill? Hearing this, Fang Mo was taken aback. But just then, a system notification sound suddenly resounded in Fang Mo's mind. System notification, the localization module has been updated to the latest version. Mom. Mom. As the system notification sound faded, the young Ender Dragon affectionately nudged Fang Mo's hand with its head. It then spoke somewhat incoherently, Mom. Well, is that what it means? Fang Mo finally realized upon hearing this. But on another note, Fang Mo couldn't help but marvel at the capabilities of his localization module. It could even translate dragon language? By the way, Ancient One, Fang Mo pondered for a moment, then turned to look at Ancient One beside him. Did you hear what this little one just said? I can't understand. It's probably the instinctual language of this creature. Ancient One shook her head, however, it doesn't seem much different from ordinary roars. Oh, I see. Fang Mo nodded and then raised the young Ender Dragon in his arms towards Ancient One. He playfully shook its tiny front paw, which had a soft pink pad underneath. Is it cute? I'm raising it. Fang Mo remarked. Ancient One simply turned her head away in response. All right, it's time to go back. Seeing that Ancient One wasn't interested in engaging with him, Fang Mo waved his hand understandingly, you can figure things out here on your own. I won't disturb you. I'll head back now. After the young Ender Dragon's birth, all the anomalies in its surroundings vanished. Not only did the end crystals disappear, even the obsidian pillars in the vicinity crumbled and turned into dust as if eroded by wind, as if the egg had absorbed all the energy around it. So, staying in this mirrored space held little meaning. It was better to return and tend to the young Ender Dragon. However, just as Fang Mo was about to take out the space stone and leave, Ancient One suddenly called out to him. Wait a moment. Hey. Fang Mo paused, what's the matter? Have you visited other worlds before? Ancient One inquired. Yes. Fang Mo recalled his previous conversation with Ancient One about visiting other worlds. I mentioned it to you earlier, right? I've been to other worlds neighboring Earth. It's just that the timeline is a bit early. World War II had recently concluded. What's that world like? Ancient One's curiosity was piqued. It's not much different from here, it's still Earth, and the history is somewhat similar. Fang Mo elaborated, however, in that world, some people develop mutated genes that grant them superpowers, leading to conflicts between regular humans and mutants. Could you provide more details? Ancient One's interest deepened. I am genuinely curious about what you've shared. If you don't mind, I'd like to hear about your experiences in that world. Sure. Fang Mo agreed and began sharing, appreciating Ancient One's interest. Now, let me think, where should I begin? Fang Mo paused to contemplate and then asked, by the way, do you have an aversion to dark humor? What's that? Ancient One inquired. It's more of a figure of speech, Fang Mo clarified, it's about really twisted and dark jokes. If you laugh and don't knock on wood, you'll lose all your good luck instantly. Could you provide an example? Ancient One asked. Once upon a time, there was a talking bar of soap. Okay, you don't need to continue. Before Fang Mo could finish, Ancient One interrupted, remember, I am the supreme sorcerer safeguarding Earth's integrity. Keep it somewhat dignified. All right, Fair enough. Fang Mo shrugged, so, let's start the story with a man named Sebastian. Chapter 140, Steve Chapter 139. When Fang Mo returned to the safe house, the sky was already beginning to lighten. It's worth mentioning that Nick Fury hadn't taken any rest, he sat on the sofa deep in thought. However, the room remained shrouded in darkness as he hadn't switched on the lights. Despite Fang Mo possessing senses far superior to those of an average person, he initially failed to detect the presence of the other person. Given that Nick Fury rarely displayed a smile, there were no rows of gleaming white teeth in sight. Naturally, Fang Mo couldn't see him. Only after the lights were turned on did he notice the silhouette on the couch. What, can't afford the electricity bill? Fang Mo glanced at Nick Fury on the couch. I gave you a whole gold blocks before. Can't you manage a bit of luxury? The gold blocks were allocated towards Hydra's payroll, Nick Fury said. However, whether I turn on the lights or not isn't relevant to them. It's simply a personal habit. Is it more convenient for you to grumble in the dark? Fang Mo asked. I hadn't even known what grumble meant before, Nick Fury said. But to deal with you, I've dedicated time to familiarize myself with the concept. Merely acquainting yourself with the concept isn't sufficient. Fang Mo chuckled. You don't think I can be handled solely through knowledge, do you? So, what should I do? Nick Fury retorted. If not through knowledge, then how? Should I employ watermelons and fried chicken to contend with you? Well, it seems you've made progress in these few days of absence. Hearing this, Fang Mo couldn't help but smile. Fortunately, I've crossed paths with you now. If you continued training a while longer, you might even master teleportation. So, has your little pet hatched yet? Nick Fury also seemed uninterested in pursuing that topic, given their prior inappropriate discussion. Changing the subject, he focused on the small ender dragon nestled in Fang Mo's arms. Is this the ender dragon you were referring to? Isn't it adorable? My son. Fang Mo proudly patted the head of the little ender dragon. Come on, give old Nick a fearsome dragon roar. The little ender dragon gazed at Fang Mo, puzzled, seemingly not comprehending. Just roar at him, Fang Mo rephrased. Unleash your fiercest aspect. Come on, emit a beam of destructive white light. Roar. The little ender dragon roared at Nick Fury, but its intimidation factor was lacking. So why do you address me as old Nick? Hearing this, Nick Fury couldn't help but inquire, shouldn't it be Uncle Nick or Uncle Fury? I suspect you're playing games. I'm not from America. Fang Mo shrugged. In our mage circle, close relations are usually referred to using single words, like Old Wang, Old Zhao, Old Chen, and so on. So, calling you Old Nick or something is simply an indication of our rapport. Do you believe I'd trust you? Nick Fury asked candidly. Well. Fang Mo glanced at him. How about I allow you to interact with the dragon for a bit? Agreed. Nick Fury immediately nodded, then extended his hand to receive the small ender dragon from Fang Mo. Have fun, but be careful not to blind your other eye in the process. Fang Mo handed the small ender dragon to Nick Fury. It's different from a cat, its suction is potent. Exercise caution. Was it cats that I previously inhaled? Nick Fury lifted the small ender dragon and then reverted to his original form. The tension on his face melted away, replaced by happiness as he scratched the dragon's belly. The cat named Goose, a cosmic monster even the Kree fear. Speaking of your eyes. Raising this topic, Fang Mo suddenly clapped his hands. Have you contemplated acquiring a new eyeball? What do you mean? Nick Fury looked up. I've recently been wholesaling eyeballs, Fang Mo said. If you're interested, I can provide you with a Sharingan. After all, you wear an eye patch, and you could become the Marvel version of Kakashi Hatake. What are the effects of these eyes? Could there be adverse reactions or other risks? Overlooking the strange things in Fang Mo's words, Nick Fury inquired directly. Is kidney deficiency a valid concern? Fang Mo recollected Kakashi Hatake's portrayal in Naruto. At times, after excessive exhaustion, your waist and legs ache, your spirits are low, and your body feels drained. Let's disregard that. Nick Fury shook his head and declined. After all these years, I've more or less grown accustomed to it. Fine. Fang Mo shrugged, opting not to press the matter. So, I'll. Before he could finish his sentence, Nick Fury's arm suddenly emitted a ringing sound. Furrowing his brows, he placed the small ender dragon down and answered the call. What's the matter? Are you certain? I'll remain on standby, I'll be there shortly. In a mere few sentences, Nick Fury concluded the call and looked at Fang Mo. Looks like we're in trouble again. What's happening? Fang Mo didn't resort to using Steve for eavesdropping this time, thus remaining unaware of the conversation's content. It appears that Stark's Christmas wasn't particularly pleasant. Nick Fury rose slowly. One of my subordinates informed me that Stark's villa was attacked, and the assailant employed alien weaponry. Hey! Upon hearing this, Fang Mo was also taken aback. Clearly, this wasn't part of the original plot, especially since Stark hadn't played a significant role since Iron Man 3. Hydra did indeed research alien energy weapons, but they were developed using the scepter. However, that weapon remained in his storage space. So, what could have attacked him? Could it be possible that Thanos sought revenge ahead of time for his daughter? Don't worry, Stark is unharmed. Seeing Fang Mo's confusion, Nick Fury thought he was concerned about Stark's safety and reassured him, there was only one assailant. Once Stark donned his armor, he quickly subdued them. He's likely interrogating them at this moment. Hearing this, Fang Mo became even more puzzled. If it were Thanos, it was quite evident he wouldn't send just one person to carry out an attack. Aren't you tired? Nick Fury glanced at Fang Mo and suggested, shall we go take a look together? Or would you prefer to rest here for a while? I'm just in it for fun whether I sleep or not, Fang Mo nodded. I'll accompany you. Then let's proceed. The car is waiting outside. As Nick Fury spoke, he turned and headed outside. Using a car, hey. Fang Mo stopped Nick Fury, remarking, your tech side is lagging behind. Allow me to show you our mysterious mode of transportation. With that, Fang Mo activated the space stone. A blue-black mist enveloped them both, and in an instant, they found themselves inside Stark's seaside villa. Coincidentally, they were in the same spot as the cheeseburger scene from Iron Man 1. Not far from Fang Mo and Nick Fury, a silver-haired young man was bound to a chair, glaring angrily at Stark. Stark's expression was a mix of emotions: helplessness, guilt, anger, confusion. As for Pepper Potts, she was wearing clothing that clearly didn't belong to her, looking rather shaken. She was breathing heavily, and red light pulsed within her body, a telltale sign of the extremis virus. However, with Fang Mo's arrival, all eyes turned to them. How did you gain access? Stark looked at them, clearly puzzled. Jarvis, did you grant these two permission to enter? Mr. Stark, this is a form of potent magic. Jarvis replied, at present, my technology isn't sufficient to prevent their entry into the villa. You see, I told you, your tech side is lagging. Fang Mo turned to Nick Fury and jestingly said, come on, join me in saying, long live magic. What's transpiring here? Confronted with a serious situation, Nick Fury didn't engage in Fang Mo's humor. I heard someone intended to attack you. I recall disposing of all the listening devices here, Stark said, looking at Nick Fury. My agent happened to be passing by when he heard an explosion. He's a fan of Iron Man, Nick Fury improvised, likely influenced by his interactions with Fang Mo. He was concerned about your safety, so he alerted me. I wasn't monitoring you. Very well, we can discuss this later. Stark clearly wasn't buying Nick Fury's explanation. He gestured toward the silver-haired young man not far away. He's the one who initiated this attack, but I don't think your involvement is necessary. This is my personal. Before Stark could finish, Fang Mo suddenly recognized the individual. Wait, you're Pietro. Fang Mo looked toward the silver-haired young man, slightly taken aback. How did you end up here? And where's your sister, Wanda? You recognize me? Pietro was also surprised by this revelation. He hadn't expected someone to recognize him, considering he was merely a minor figure from Sokovia. The fastest man alive in the world, hardly anyone wouldn't recognize you. Besides, your speed in snatching lunches is also top-notch, Fang Mo quipped. Chapter 141, Steve. Chapter 140. Isn't the fastest man in the world universally recognized? Fang Mo reminisced about the scene from Avengers, Age of Ultron, and couldn't resist a playful comment, and of course, he's also the quickest at claiming lunch boxes. By the time he's not even done filming, you've already polished off your chicken leg rice. Hey? What? Since Pietro hadn't awakened his superpowers yet, he was understandably puzzled by Fang Mo's words, asking, what? What are you talking about? Are you Pietro, with a sister named Wanda? Fang Mo gave Pietro a quick look before diving in. Both of you lived in a place called Sokovia. When you were young, a conflict erupted there, and both of you became orphans. Because a missile with the Stark Industries logo landed in your home, so you developed a grudge against Tony Stark, correct? How do you know all of this? Staring in disbelief at Fang Mo, Pietro found himself thoroughly exposed. The details Fang Mo shared were so precise, revealing many things Pietro hadn't disclosed. This left him feeling uneasy. Telepathy, kid. Stark chimed in, adding, although I hate to admit it, magic can indeed be quite convenient at times. I'd suggest laying everything on the table so that we can sit down and talk things out. I have nothing to discuss with you, the executioner. Upon hearing Stark's words, Pietro's expression turned once more to anger. If you didn't have that armor, you'd be dead by now. Fine, you're right. Stark glanced at the arc reactor on his chest and sighed. Since Fang Mo helped remove the shrapnel, Stark's arc reactor was now external. But thinking about the suffering he endured in Afghanistan and the betrayal by his close friend Obadiah, Stark still felt discomfort. As mentioned, he would have died without that armor. You killed our parents. However, Pietro wasn't interested in Stark's perspective. He angrily claimed, Stark Industries raked in a fortune from selling weapons over the years, right? Your armor came at the cost of the lives of people killed by the weapons you created. All right. Before Stark could defend himself, Fang Mo waved his hand to interrupt. You're not good at handling this. You're acting as guilty as a neighbor hiding in the closet. Step aside and let me handle it. Young man. Fang Mo smiled at Pietro, saying, you wouldn't want anything to happen to Wanda, right? Are you trying to manipulate me? Pietro looked up, giving Fang Mo a cold smile. I left Wanda out of this attack on Stark. I sent her to England for studies long before. Oh. Hearing this, Fang Mo hesitated for a moment. He hadn't expected this foolproof strategy to fail. It seemed that the butterfly effect he was causing was growing more pronounced. Just taking a Mind Stone had resulted in a significant impact on the storyline. Wanda even went off to study. Why would the Scarlet Witch want further education? It was truly delaying her destiny. Ahem, all right. Fang Mo cleared his throat, changing his approach. So, you said she went to England, right? Good, that's valuable information. This narrows down the search range for apprehending her. You. Pietro's eyes widened. I did all of this alone, and Wanda had nothing to do with it. And then? Fang Mo asked. You can kill me if you want, but leave Wanda alone. Pietro said quickly, I orchestrated and executed this all by myself. Even if you capture her, she won't know anything. But I can use her to threaten you. Fang Mo added with a cheerful tone. You can't do that. Pietro protested, how could you? The law won't allow you. The law. Fang Mo's patience seemed to be waning upon hearing this. This kid was pretty naive. How had he managed to survive to this age? Young man, do you know? Seeing this guy's evident cluelessness, Fang Mo couldn't resist teasing him. When I was a kid, my dream was to become a legal expert. I thought that by mastering law, I could eventually switch careers and become a wizard. Later on, I discovered that the profession you transition to is called a lawyer. Figures. However, in some ways, these two are quite similar. Fang Mo grinned and explained to the baffled Pietro, because if they excel in either field, no law can hold them back. But you're an Avenger. Pietro suddenly felt a bit uneasy. No, he's not. Shield has never officially recognized his Avenger status. Nick Fury, as the head of the old agency, immediately chimed in to support Fang Mo. During the Battle of New York, I risked my life to intercept several nuclear missiles for him. Not because the nukes would have destroyed New York, but because in the next second, he could have grabbed those nukes and teleported them to Washington, D.C., then obliterated everything there. What? Pietro looked at Nick Fury, completely baffled. I'm serious, kid. Nick Fury's tone turned serious. If he wanted to kill you or destroy the world, even if the other Avengers did everything in their power to stop him, it probably wouldn't matter. All right, I also have to admit that. Stark nodded helplessly. He was speaking the truth, after all. Even if it's not a physically catastrophic event, just tossing around all that gold would be enough to plunge this world into absolute chaos. Remember, the collapse of the financial and economic sectors is just as terrifying. Pietro looked at the two of them, bewildered. For a moment, he couldn't discern whether they were acting or speaking the truth. This gentleman, I suggest you speak the truth. Pepper Potts couldn't help but intervene. Mr. Fang Mo's patience has limits, and we can't guarantee what might transpire next. If he takes out a vial of potion, you're as good as done. Consider your sister, at the very least. Nick Fury added, otherwise, I could dissect you and your sister all day long. This. Pietro hesitated for a moment before instinctively looking at Fang Mo. At this moment, Fang Mo was wearing a smile, but for some reason, Pietro suddenly felt uneasy. Pietro couldn't quite put a finger on the feeling. It was akin to a wounded bird being eyed by a cat. It wasn't that the cat intended to devour it, rather, the look in its eyes carried something eerie, as if it only desired to play with the bird, and its life or death held no significance. After a brief silence, Pietro eventually started confessing. According to Pietro, he and Wanda had been leading a regular life in Sokovia. But some time ago, he had earned some money from work and decided to take Wanda out to unwind. After all, they couldn't stay in Sokovia forever. They settled on New York as their destination. Of course, neither Wanda nor Pietro intended it as a vacation. They simply wanted to see firsthand what kind of person Stark was in New York. They never mentioned this to each other, both secretly harbored thoughts of killing Stark if given the chance. However, their timing was terrible. Just as Pietro and Wanda reached New York, the Chitauri invasion began. Chitauri aliens wreaked havoc everywhere, terrifying Pietro and Wanda. They sought refuge in a large church alongside numerous others. When the Chitauri attacked, Captain America courageously intervened and battled the aliens, even losing his shield in the process. Iron Man joined the fray, using his body to shield the children from the aliens' attacks. He was even blasted away, sparking from his armor. Witnessing this, Wanda wavered in her convictions, unable to understand Stark's actions. In Pietro's and Wanda's eyes, Stark Industries had caused the deaths of many innocent lives. This had cemented their belief that Tony Stark was a selfish individual. But why would he risk his life to protect civilians? Although Wanda was uncertain, Pietro remained resolute. He was determined to kill Tony Stark. The memory of his fear when he saw that missile as a child remained deeply ingrained in him. Conveniently, a deceased Chitauri lay nearby, and its energy weapon had slid a distance away. Pietro swiftly picked up the weapon and hid it in his luggage. At the time, Wanda was still grappling with her emotions and didn't notice Pietro's actions. Later, after the war concluded, Pietro fabricated a reason to leave and journeyed to the outskirts of New York. He dug a hole to bury the energy weapon in a concealed location. Afterward, he returned to Sokovia with Wanda, acting as if nothing had happened. The following events were straightforward. Pietro sent Wanda to England for further studies, pretending everything was normal. Meanwhile, he secretly returned to New York, aiming to uncover Stark's precise whereabouts. However, right at this moment, Pietro found himself aided by a mysterious individual. This person didn't disclose their identity, but they provided Pietro with Stark's residential address. So, with energy weapon in hand, Pietro hurriedly dashed to the location. Ah ha ha ha, trouble has arrived. However, while the plan was ingenious, the attacker proved to be underwhelming. How could Pietro, an ordinary individual, possibly contend with Tony's combat expertise? With a momentary hesitation, he was promptly overpowered. Chapter 142, Steve. Chapter 141. He said what he should be true. After listening to Pietro's explanation, Nick Fury quickly concluded, the date he mentioned matches the timing of the shield's internal turmoil. The informant behind this is likely a member of Hydra. So, no one manipulated you. You orchestrated all of this on your own. Upon hearing this, Fang Mo appeared equally taken aback. He had assumed that a Hydra Baron was responsible for this incident. I've stated it before, this doesn't involve anyone else, Pietro asserted. Wanda is completely unaware of this. All the plans were my own. If anyone is to be punished, it's me. Well. Listening to Pietro, Stark, the victim, found himself with a headache. He hadn't forgotten the terrorists in Afghanistan who claimed to be demons, boasting about the weapons they created that killed countless individuals. Despite shutting down his weapons division and engaging in charitable work, he couldn't rid himself of the guilt that lingered in his heart. Thus, he was uncertain about how to deal with Pietro. Killing him wasn't a viable option, as he wasn't an egregious criminal. At most, he could be incarcerated for breaking the law. But would imprisoning him truly resolve the issue? Stark felt lost. At that moment, a hand was placed on his shoulder. "Hey, big guy, quit overthinking this. Your thoughts are sounding like a woman's nagging," Fang Mo quipped with a smile, addressing Stark. "We have a saying in my homeland, water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn it. Can you blame the water if someone drowns? What about those who perish from thirst? So, can you please stop delving into my thoughts?" Stark sighed in exasperation. "Just like how you complain about radiation from technology, I have a suspicion that your mind reading might be carcinogenic," Stark retorted. "Nonsense, us magicians are healthy and long-lived," Fang Mo countered. "Unlike you scientists, who are either incessantly babbling about quantum mechanics or meddling with nuclear physics, mutating into radioactive monsters. It's hard to tell if you're human or spectral. You. Enough, now's not the time for bickering." Just as Stark was about to interject, Nick Fury cut in. "The main concern is how to handle this individual." "It's simple, summon his guardian," Fang Mo suggested casually. "Can you be serious?" Nick Fury couldn't help but remind him, he mentioned his parents are deceased. "I'm referring to his sister." Fang Mo clarified, "Didn't he mention her? His sister is experiencing doubts. We can bring her here, have Stark apologize and explain in person. Appeal to her emotions and logic. Then, his sister can take him away and keep an eye on him." "Can his sister be considered a guardian?" Nick Fury countered, "Isn't she merely family? Ask him. Do you think he wouldn't heed his sister's words?" Fang Mo gestured at Pietro. "If he truly were that brave, he wouldn't have deceived Wanda into going to the UK before taking action." "All right." Stark agreed. He found the plan reasonable, so, should we contact his sister now? "Let him call her himself." Fang Mo suggested, "We don't possess his sister's contact details." "Oh." Stark concurred, then utilized a small knife on his armor to cut the ropes binding Pietro. Pietro was now cooperative, perhaps frightened by Fang Mo. He promptly retrieved a cell phone from his pocket and dialed a number. However, after a brief while, Pietro's brows furrowed. "Strange, it won't connect." He glanced at everyone and redialed the number, but the result was unchanged, no connection. "JARVIS." Stark addressed the AI, attempt to trace the source of the signal. "Sir, I can't locate the target." Almost instantly, J.A.R.V.I.S.'s voice responded, "Satellite communication can't ascertain the current location of the target. The target was in London, UK 5 minutes ago, but has since vanished." "What?" Pietro became anxious. What's happening?" "Vanished." Stark was equally taken aback. "How is that possible? Even if someone's phone is turned off or they're in a dead zone, you should be able to trace their last location based on data from the communication company. Perhaps you should view this." JARVIS suggested, activating a nearby display screen. The screen depicted an old factory, with overturned police cars nearby and several British police officers on the ground. A group of women stood not far away, and a man seemed to be arguing with one of them. "Hey? Isn't that Thor?" Nick Fury observed the man in the video. "What's he doing there? Maybe he's having a dispute with his girlfriend." Stark mentioned Thor's Earth girlfriend, Jane Foster. Her appearance matched that of one of the women on the screen. He turned to Pepper Potts and teased, "Pepper, see, even the mighty Thor struggles with his girlfriend. So, don't be too hard on me sometimes." As Fang Mo viewed the surveillance footage JARVIS had sent, he couldn't help but twitch his eye a few times. Turning to Pietro, he inquired, "So, when you mentioned sending Wanda to England for further studies, were you referring to her accompanying Jane Foster to research the space-time portal?" Indeed, it was in the recent surveillance footage. Fang Mo not only saw Thor and Thor's girlfriend Jane Foster, but he also noticed Wanda standing behind them. However, swiftly, the surveillance footage took an eerie turn. Both Jane and Wanda emitted bursts of red light, followed by an eruption of dark red energy that sent Thor flying. After witnessing this scene, Fang Mo's face once again displayed a look of surprise and speechlessness. Oh! Could these ether particles have become mixed up? Clearly, the Thor in the surveillance couldn't hear Fang Mo's words. He looked somewhat surprised at Jane, then proceeded to explain something to them. Before the surrounding police could react, Thor suddenly raised his hammer, called out for Heimdall, and in the next moment, the Rainbow Bridge's light descended, making the three figures disappear instantly. And the video stopped at this point. Where did he take my sister? After watching the video, Pietro suddenly became flustered and nervous. That hammer-wielding guy is also one of you Avengers, right? Where has he taken Wanda? What does he want to do? Take a moment to calm down. Thor is the Norse mythological god of thunder, not the Greek one. Nick Fury reassured him, your sister should be safe, and you needn't worry. After all, we have someone here who understands the situation. Saying that, Nick Fury shifted his gaze to Fang Mo. Thor's in trouble. Fang Mo didn't mince words, that object is one of the Infinity Stones, the Reality Stone, formerly a prized possession of the Dark Elves. Asgard is probably in danger, and Thor's in for quite a day. Can you contact Asgard? Upon hearing this, Nick Fury furrowed his brow. Why bother contacting when we can just go? While speaking, Fang Mo produced the Space Stone. I won't bore you with the details. I'm going to intervene and follow the plot. Old Nick, take care of my little pet for me. I'll treat you to some quantum pim particles later. Mother fudge. Nick Fury couldn't hold back any longer, can't you just properly call my name? Fang Mo completely ignored him. His primary goal now was to snap his fingers with the Infinity Stones. Of course, he also needed the ether particles. It conveniently provided an opportunity to take down Malekith, this minor boss, and alleviate some boredom. With a thought, the space stone in his hand emitted a mist of spatial energy, enveloping him within it. When Fang Mo reappeared, he found himself within Asgard's celestial palace. However, at present, the palace was embroiled in a clash. Soldiers from both sides were engaged in combat everywhere, not only Asgard's warriors but also piles of dark elf corpses. The scene was far grimmer than depicted in the movies. Hey! The battle has already begun. Seeing this scene, Fang Mo was evidently surprised. Did the original story progress this swiftly? Yet, before Fang Mo could fully react, distant thunderous roars echoed from a nearby chamber. Immediately afterward, Thor's voice, filled with sorrow and anger, resounded, "No! Mother!" Chapter 143, Steve Chapter 142. As he entered through the door, he realized that the Dark Elf had already managed to escape. Over by the window on the terrace, Thor stood, a torrent of anger in his roar, as he hurled Mjolnir, his formidable hammer, toward a colossal dagger-shaped ship in the distance. However, before Mjolnir could reach its intended target, the warship abruptly engaged stealth mode, vanishing instantaneously. The hammer lost its trajectory, returning to Thor's grip. F***ck. Thor's fury resonated in his bellow, his body crackling with lightning. Just as he contemplated whether to ascend and hunt down his adversary, a voice from behind startled him, a voice he recognized well. Well, the Dark Elf certainly lives up to its name. That instantaneous vanishing trick is quite the spectacle. Fang Mo. Thor's shock was evident as he turned towards the voice. You? What you? Hurry and hand your mother an apple. Fang Mo gestured to a golden apple on the nearby table, continuing, wait any longer, and you might shift from being a dutiful son to one marked by filial neglect. Apple. Thor's anxiety was palpable. What apple are you referring to? Did your mother never share this with you? Fang Mo sighed, massaging his forehead. Never mind, I'll handle it. In a split second, Fang Mo performed 2 consecutive teleportations, then, exerting a gentle force with his left hand, he transformed the myth-level enchanted golden apple into a pool of pale gold apple puree. Gently prying open Freya's mouth, he introduced the puree. Given the inability of the recipient to autonomously swallow, the potency of the enchanted golden apple might be compromised. Hence, Fang Mo procured an instant healing potion, pouring it onto the wound on her lower back. In the original narrative, the goddess Freya succumbed when cursed warriors thrust a sword through her body. The warriors' attacks carried magical damage, a particular technique unique to the Dark Elves, capable of even draining the life force from Asgardian soldiers' bodies with bare hands. However, as fearsome as the cursed warriors were, the restorative potions of the Minecraft world were not to be trifled with. Even the oft overused Sharingan could be exploited, and the curative potency of these Minecraft potions had ascended to a conceptual level. When combined with the manifold enhancements of the enchanted golden apple, Freya promptly regained consciousness. Mother! Frigga's awakening evoked joy in Thor. I'm relieved you're well. What's this? Frigga, still slightly disoriented from her awakening, found herself staring at Fang Mo. However, in an instant, comprehension dawned upon her. So, you did come after all. With time for heroic sacrifice, why not instead endure until the very end? Fang Mo smiled at the goddess Frigga and said, I apologize, Your Majesty. I find myself devoid of time for games. The severance between children and kin is far too cruel in my eyes. Thus, I took the liberty of rescuing you. No, gratitude is owed to you. Freya shook her head, her smile a mixture of relief and warmth. Your presence here is undoubtedly woven into destiny. I welcome it wholeheartedly, for which mother would willingly accept separation from her children? Mother, I'm sorry. Thor's understanding deepened upon hearing her words. He lowered his head in self-reproach. I arrived too late. No, you've performed admirably. Frigga smiled, reaching out to tenderly touch Thor's face. Affectionately, she added, My son, you've always been exceptional. Fang Mo gazed at the unfolding scene before him, a moment of bewilderment washing over him. In a concealed corner, the Mind Stone within his storage space trembled without apparent cause. Subsequently, a wave of distant memories surged back into Fang Mo's mind. However, Fang Mo swiftly regained his composure. Shaking his head, he walked to the window, silently looking out. While the others remained unaware, Fang Mo possessed a mini-map. Just beyond Asgard's airspace, he spotted an entirely cloaked colossal structure, presumably the Dark Elf Mothership. Squinting his eyes, Fang Mo initiated a teleportation. In the following heartbeat, a shadowy flash lit up the sky, and he materialized high above the Asgardian realm. Fang Mo raised his hand, conjuring the blade with a swift motion. The resounding crash echoed as the blade found its target. Subsequently, the illusory air retreated like a tide, unveiling an immense, ink-black warship. The vessel bore a cross-like shape, its frame a fusion of metal and unfamiliar rock. At the core of the central cross-section loomed a massive turbine-like energy engine, emanating astonishing power that propelled the ship. Its blood-red glow cast an eerie ambience. Sir, our flagship's presence has been exposed, a dark elf within the dark warship's interior reported, responsible for piloting the vessel. Are those accursed gods responsible? Melikith touched his burnt cheek, still reeling from a furious blow by the thunder god. Half of his face bore the scars of the encounter. Momentarily dizzy, he inquired, Odin? The hammer wielder? Or perhaps the gatekeeper? None of them. The dark elf hesitated briefly. It seems to be someone from Midgard. What? Melikith was taken aback. You mean, those feeble earth humans? It appears they're attempting to communicate with us. The dark elf controlling the ship spoke hesitantly. Sir, should we deploy the ship's cannons to retaliate? Wait, what did they say? Melikith displayed curiosity. Fetching external information now. The dark elf immediately began manipulating controls. A vast screen materialized above the nearby console, featuring Fang Mo's emotionless visage. My apologies, but my current mood isn't particularly pleasant. Fang Mo's emotionless voice resonated through the cabin. Thus, what I'm about to do to you is purely a means of venting my frustrations. Hey! Not only Melikith, but even the other dark elves found themselves baffled. Before they could fully comprehend, the entire warship trembled like never before. Alarms sounded in a cacophony. Our ship's defense barrier is under heavy assault. The other party is using an unknown method to attack us. Sir! Engine power has dropped by 30%. Multiple dark elves responsible for operating the ship exclaimed simultaneously. However, as they did, the ship experienced an even more intense jolt, surpassing the previous tremor. Melikith barely maintained his balance, saved only by the quick intervention of the Kur's warrior beside him. Simultaneously, in the exterior world, Fang Mo readied himself for the imminent assault. He extended both arms, broadening the reach of his gravitational field as far as possible. Next, he forcefully clasped his hands together, initiating the rapid contraction of an extensive spherical force field. His efforts did not cease there. Fang Mo's intentions activated the Nine Tails Ender Sword stored within his storage space. In an instant, a golden aura enveloped Fang Mo, followed by the accumulation of incessant chakra in his palms. It gradually condensed into a blackish-purple sphere. Following this, he retrieved a space stone and clutched it in his palm, his ring of arcana glowing brightly. A torrent of flames surged forth, reminiscent of a galaxy engulfing the cosmos. Then, as if ensnared in a whirlpool, the flames were relentlessly compressed within his palm. The influence of high temperatures caused the blackish-purple sphere to glow intensely, resembling a blazing sun during the daytime. Unyielding light and heat converged forcibly in his palm, resembling a second sun within the celestial expanse. Simultaneously, the translucent white repulsion field collided with the ship's barrier. A thunderous boom resounded as the Dark Elf mothership succumbed to the tremendous pressure. Countless armors caved inward, triggering explosions in rapid succession. In the ensuing moment, Fang Mo extended his hand forward. A brilliance capable of overshadowing heaven and earth radiated from his palm. Even the artificial sun of the divine realm grew dimmer by comparison. It was as though only this brilliance remained in the cosmos. The luminous column struck the Dark Elf mothership with irresistible force, breaching the vessel's core without hindrance. Following this impact, the entire mothership reverberated with a deafening roar, succumbing to liquefaction and evaporation. In the span of a mere moment, 2/3 of the Dark Elf mothership vanished, its remnants plummeting from the sky in a deluge of debris. Multiple dagger-shaped smaller ships emerged from the wreckage, converging upon Fang Mo from various angles. Without evasive action, Fang Mo retrieved and swiftly consumed a speed-enhancing potion. Next, he unsheathed his broad-bladed greatsword, prepared to face the oncoming threat. Enhanced by both the tailed beast cloak and the speed-enhancing potion, Fang Mo's power had reached a level verging on the absurd. He swung the greatsword forcefully, generating a sharp sonic boom as the blade sliced through the air. The once formidable small dagger-shaped ships were cleaved asunder in an instant. Immediately after, Fang Mo engaged a teleportation, followed by a powerful punch directed at the second dagger-shaped ship. A translucent white repulsion field encased his fist, and with a potent downward strike, the ship fragmented into pieces. The Dark Elf within the cockpit was hurled out. Before they could plummet, Fang Mo used a spatial gemstone to bring them before him. Swiftly, he delivered a punch to the crown of their head. The Dark Elf's skull exploded like a watermelon, the lower jaw and neck driven into their chest cavity. Their skeletal structure disintegrated into countless fragments in an instant. Observing this spectacle, the inhabitants of Asgard below all bore dumbfounded expressions. As they watched Fang Mo mercilessly slaughter the Dark Elves like a war deity, these Asgardians couldn't help but entertain the same query as the Dark Elves. Is this truly the Midgardian they claim to be? Chapter 144, Steve. Chapter 143. Man, what in the world am I doing here? Staring at the wreckage of battleships and the piles of Dark Elf corpses, Fang Mo was left utterly speechless. He had initially planned to follow the storyline of Thor 2, deliberately releasing the Kur's warrior and Malekith, then teaming up with Loki and Thor to deceive Malekith and extract the ether particles from Wanda and Jane Foster. Once those particles were extracted, Fang Mo could eliminate Malekith and claim them as his own. This way, he would possess the Mind, Space, and Reality Infinity Stones. Along with the Eye of Agamotto that Ancient One possessed, the Power Stone that Star-Lord was in search of, and the Soul Stone protected by the Red Skull on Vormir for centuries, Fang Mo's path to verifying his hypothesis of snapping his fingers with the Infinity Gauntlet seemed to be one step closer. Things were going well according to Fang Mo's plan. However, just moments ago in the side hall, he had suddenly felt a twinge of discontent. Witnessing the deep affection between goddess Frigga and her son Thor unexpectedly stirred up feelings of homesickness within Fang Mo. Despite believing that he was adept at controlling his homesickness, Fang Mo was taken aback by this unexpected emotion. He had fun, friends, a pet he treated like a son, nearly invincible power, and endless wealth. He felt like he could live without any worries. So, how could he suddenly be grappling with feelings of depression? This odd sense of detachment made Fang Mo realize that something was amiss, but he couldn't quite pinpoint what it was at that moment. Returning to the palace from the side hall, Fang Mo carried a broad-bladed sword in hand. To his surprise, King Odin had already arrived and was expressing concern about his wife's condition. "He saved me," Frigga informed Odin upon seeing Fang Mo's return. Odin nodded solemnly and spoke, "Indeed, Fang Mo is not only Asgard's most valuable ally but also the greatest sorcerer from Midgard. Fang Mo nodded in agreement and offered a smile to Odin before continuing, however, I might have been a bit too forceful just now. It could take some time to clean up the wreckage of those spaceships. Those things are of little consequence, Frigga responded. Then, she turned to Fang Mo and said, but your mental state just now. It seemed like something was affecting you. Is there something bothering you? Fang Mo's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He hadn't anticipated that even Goddess Frigga could perceive his unease. Perhaps I can be of assistance, Frigga offered. Standing up from her chair, she approached Fang Mo and continued, I hail from the Vanir, raised by witches, and possess a different magic system than Asgard's. I've also delved into the realms of the mind and soul. Fang Mo's eyebrows furrowed slightly. While he recognized Frigga as a caring mother, he had reservations about concepts like mind reading. Fang Mo didn't want to treat Frigga the way Charles would, and he was apprehensive that exposing his inner thoughts to her might lead to madness or some inexplicable frenzy. Before Fang Mo could ruminate further, Frigga began to explain. Rest assured, I won't be using mind reading or memory magic. As if sensing Fang Mo's doubts, Frigga assured him, I simply want to help you identify what's affecting you. You saved my life. While I can't address these issues fundamentally, please allow me to contribute in my own modest way. Indeed, Fang Mo, Thor chimed in, standing by with his hammer, you needn't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders alone. Asgard is your friend, sometimes, you must learn to accept assistance. All right, Fang Mo finally nodded upon hearing that. The next steps were quite straightforward. Frigga instructed him to lie down and relax, then began casting her magic. Fang Mo felt something touching his consciousness, but unlike Charles's unsettling telepathy, Frigga's magic was distinct. It didn't delve into his memories and thoughts, instead, it sought to resonate with his emotions. Closing his eyes, Fang Mo felt a sense of calm washing over his inner self. After a while, Frigga lifted the magic, and Fang Mo slowly rose from the stone platform. Do you have something that can affect the mind on you? Freya looked at Fang Mo, her voice hesitant. I sensed a peculiar lingering energy, with strong and extremely suggestive mental properties. I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely the strangest thing I've encountered in my entire life. Something affecting the mind. Fang Mo echoed, his brow slightly furrowing. Your soul is incredibly strong, Freya's expression showed her confusion. Normally, whether it's a curse or some form of mental attack, they shouldn't work on you. But this is different. This pale yellow energy is almost entirely composed of pure mental power. It isn't attacking, rather, it's silently and subtly influencing you. It has melded into a part of your mental world, and you can't guard against it yourself. Pale yellow energy. Fang Mo's understanding crystallized. All right, I think I know what you're talking about. With a slight thought, Fang Mo conjured a piece of pale golden gemstone in his hand. What's this? At the sight of this object, Freya's expression turned astonished. An infinity stone. Yes, Freya seems to possess keen discernment. Given that beings from the Asgards boast extremely long lifespans, it's unsurprising that she might have lost track of her own age and encountered rumors about the Infinity Stone. It's quite likely that this object is the source of the issue. Fang Mo regarded the Mind Stone in his hand, and his words flowed instinctively, it's highly probable that this object is causing the disturbance. In fact, even when Avengers: Infinity War was first released, Fang Mo had contemplated that the Mind Stone might be the weakest among the Infinity Stone. However, he later chanced upon a post that gradually illuminated the nature of the Mind Stone. You see, within the comics, 7 Infinity Stones are featured, as opposed to the 6 within the realm of cinematic storytelling. Legend has it that after the self-destruction of Nemesis, her essence transformed into 7 gems: power, time, space, reality, soul, mind, and ego. Yet, the cinematic universe omits the ego gem from its depiction. Nevertheless, the hue of the Mind Stone precisely mirrors that of the Ego Stone. Perhaps it even shares certain attributes with the Ego Stone. After all, within the Infinity Gauntlet, the Mind Stone holds a position of dominance. Logically speaking, the Mind Stone, which is depicted with such grandeur in the movies, should assume a similar role, right? But the outcome is astonishing. Evidently, the Mind Stone occupies the pivotal core of the Infinity Gauntlet. Speculation has arisen that the Mind Stone encapsulates a malevolent consciousness, which unconsciously distorts the thoughts of its wielder. Throughout all the Marvel movies, those who have wielded the Mind Stone include Thanos, Loki, Hydra, Stark, Ultron, and Vision. Initially, Loki was merely discontented with Odin's treatment. However, after obtaining the Mind Scepter, he evolved into a full-fledged antagonist. Of course, he experienced redemption after surrendering the scepter. As for Hydra, their extremism is self-evident. Even Stark, after encountering the Mind Scepter, grappled with escalating inner turmoil and fear, to the point that he created Ultron. Given that Ultron's consciousness matrix originates from the internal structure of the Mind Stone, its impact ran even deeper. This influence resulted in Ultron's transformation into a significant antagonist, driven by the compulsion to obliterate the world. And then there's Thanos. He was the first to interact with the Mind Stone and consequently suffered the most pronounced influence. Originally, he aspired to establish universal equilibrium after witnessing the devastation of Titan and its inhabitants. Yet, under the relentless influence of the Mind Stone, his sanity eroded, rendering him a maniacal force that decimated entire populations. The most formidable aspect of the Mind Stone lies not in its capacity to control others, but its subtle sway over the wielder. If the Mind Stone's internal consciousness is genuinely malevolent, it would surely recognize that corrupting its possessor would be more effective for wreaking havoc than corrupting others. After all, only the mighty can attain the Infinity Stones. Nonetheless, what astonished Fang Mo was the Mind Stone's ability to affect even someone like himself from beyond its reality. It appears that I must devise a means to restrain it. Fang Mo appraised the Mind Stone in his hand, his gaze narrowing ominously, for instance, stuffing this inside a Nurgle, subsequently sealing that individual within an Ender sword, and then nesting that sword within a shulker box. Following this, placing the shulker box within a receptacle and transferring that container to a distinct dimension using the geokist. Finally, ensconcing the geokist inside another Nurgle. Frigga was left utterly flabbergasted by what she had heard, leaving her speechless for an extended moment. No, Fang Mo. Even Thor couldn't resist rubbing his forehead, interjecting, "It's just a stone, but what you're proposing seems a tad excessive, wouldn't you agree?" Indeed, even the Mind Stone itself appeared to dim slightly in luster on account of this suggestion. Does this approach strike you as overly repulsive? Fang Mo shrugged, offering, "It's the first time I've encountered such concealed loss. Nevertheless, I'm currently quite irritated. Were it not for the fact that I'll need this object later on, I'd pulverize it into dust on the spot. Pray tell, when will you alter your penchant for bearing grudges?" Thor couldn't help but feel a touch of exasperation, questioning, "You mention that you'll require its use later, and yet you now contemplate inserting it into, coming into contact with excrement. Don't you find that nauseating? What's being introduced into a pile of excrement is it, not me? If anyone should experience disgust, it should be the stone itself." Fang Mo retorted directly, "The next time I wish to use it, I might opt to scoop it up with a spoon or utilize it through a layer of toilet paper, or something of that sort." "Stop, I'm already envisioning it." Thor pretended to retch, swiftly waving his hand to signal Fang Mo to desist with such descriptions. Chapter 145, Steve Chapter 144. Fang Mo didn't actually put the Mind Stone into the pile of dung. On one hand, there wasn't a suitable candidate, and on the other hand, Frigga thought of a solution for him. As it turns out, the Mind Stone can indeed affect the holder's mind. But leaving that aside, other Infinity Stones can also harm their holders to some extent. For example, during World War II, the Red Skull activated the Tesseract, which transported him to Vormir, and the ether particles also gradually absorbed the holder's life. Of course, the Power Stone is the most extreme case. If you're not worthy, touching it would kill you without a doubt. That's why throughout history, stone holders created containers. For instance, the outer shell of the Space Stone is the Tesseract, the seal for the Power Stone is the Cosmic Orb, and the container for the Time Stone is the Eye of Agamotto. According to Frigga's explanation, the reason the Mind Stone affects Fang Mo is due to the lack of a container and because Fang Mo carries it close to his body. Yes, although Fang Mo's storage space is relatively independent, it's essentially a pocket dimension within him that he can control at will. Just like when he absorbed chakra from the Nine-Tails sword or activated the Evertide amulet to change the weather. When Fang Mo throws the Mind Stone into his storage space, in a sense, it's almost like digging a hole in his chest and shoving it in there. What's more, in the X-Men world, Fang Mo removed the shell of the Mind Stone and discarded it. This is similar to Stark putting the palladium reactor in his chest, with the only difference being Fang Mo dared to tease Stark for being Palladium Man, but no one dared to mock Fang Mo for this. Honestly, who would dare to make fun of this lunatic? Do they still want to live? Fortunately, Frigga is skilled in mental magic. According to her proposal, they can first create a simple container using certain materials, and then she can cast a spell to completely seal and isolate the Mind Stone. Actually, this kind of thing should have been done in Nidavellir. After all, when it comes to crafting containers, the dwarves living on the Nidavellir are more skilled. But now that Asgard has just been invaded and even the palace's defense shield has been destroyed, the ether particles are still within Jane and Wanda. Currently, Frigga needs to handle a lot of things for Odin, and she truly doesn't have time to accompany Fang Mo to Nidavellir for research. As for the materials needed to create the container, that's relatively simple. Frigga mentioned that there are some URU left in Asgard that can be used. But just mentioning URU gave Fang Mo a sudden inspiration. In fact, he has URU himself, since he's acquired more alloy modules through the Tinker construct, which increased this mineral. However, Fang Mo now has a better idea. That is Imperomite. As we all know, it has the property of causing mental damage. Even Obito was only grazed by it and ended up unable to take care of himself. Until before Fang Mo left the Naruto world, he was basically bedridden, having his brain truly cut off. According to Fang Mo's idea, since Imperomite can attack enemies on a mental level, wouldn't this be a form of materialized spiritual attack? If he turns Imperomite into a weapon, it can cut into the thoughts and spirit of an enemy. So, if Imperomite is made into a container, could it shield against the influence on the mental level? Thinking of this, Fang Mo instructed Steve to quickly operate. He divided an Imperomite ingot into 9 pieces and materialized one of them, then handed it to Frigga, who was about to get the URU. Take a look at this. Fang Mo handed over the Imperomite piece, saying, I think this might be more suitable as a container than URU, right? This is. Frigga curiously took the Imperomite and attempted to use magic on it. In the next moment, she showed a surprised expression. This metal can actually shield mental energy? Where did you get it? It's just a magic alloy. Fang Mo said, so, can this be used? Of course. Frigga nodded, but this seems to insulate against magic as well. It's better to wrap it with a layer of URU on the outside. I have URU too. Once again, Fang Mo took out a URU metal piece from his pocket. Frigga gave Fang Mo a surprised look, but didn't say much. After receiving it, she started working with her servants to create the container. Although Asgard may appear backward, its magical technology is actually quite advanced. For example, the soul forge used for body checks is actually a magical version of a quantum field generator. There are many other magical technologies like this, which weren't portrayed in the original source material. Using magic, Frigga created an exquisite container. The container was silver-white in color, a regular dodecahedron with complex magical runes engraved on each face. Its surface was made of URU metal, while the inside was filled with Emperor's gold. With this, it won't be able to affect you anymore. Frigga handed over the dodecahedron container to Fang Mo, then smiled confidently, give it a try. Fang Mo placed the Mind Stone inside, and the exquisite runes on the dodecahedron lit up, emitting a shimmering blue light that circulated inside, completely sealing the Mind Stone. Seeing this scene, Fang Mo looked up and thanked Frigga. Thank you. You're welcome. I just did what I should. Frigga smiled gently, if you get the chance in the future, consider visiting Nidavellir. The dwarves there could assist you in refining this container further. Perhaps then, you might not even need to take it out to harness the power of the Infinity Stone. Understood. Fang Mo nodded. Frigga's words were indeed a timely reminder for him. After wrapping up matters here, Fang Mo realized it was crucial to pay a visit to Nidavellir. After all, it's the homeland of the dwarves. From what we witnessed in Avengers, Infinity War, Eitri, the Dwarf King, crafted Stormbreaker through a process, first, adjusting the forge's temperature, then melting the URU metal ingot, pouring the molten URU into the axe mold, waiting for it to cool, and finally attaching a handle. Isn't this essentially the crafting process from Tinker Construct? Fang Mo felt compelled to head to Nidavellir. The dwarves' weapon crafting process resonates so much with Tinker Construct. By exploring there, he might even uncover some additional modules. Perhaps even unlocking numerous auxiliary modules for Tinker Construct. And then there's Camartage. On one hand, he should attempt to unlock magic-oriented modules. On the other hand, he could draw inspiration from their container that seals the Infinity Stone. Given their possession of artifacts like the Eye of Agamotto, they should excel in this aspect. Although Imperomite, combined with the goddess's sealing magic, can already suppress the Mind Stone, adding an extra layer of security wouldn't hurt. Fang Mo truly wishes to avoid being influenced by this strange substance again. It's truly repulsive. Frigga smiled gently, if you have the chance, you can go talk to Odin. It seemed like she remembered something and suddenly spoke to Fang Mo, he seems to want to discuss something with you. Oh, I understand. Fang Mo could guess what Odin wanted, so he left the side hall. Not long after Fang Mo left. Soon, Thor rushed in with an anxious expression. Mother, something's wrong with Jane. As soon as Thor entered, he immediately said, Father just checked, the ether particles are abnormally active, consuming her life. The Dark Elves have been destroyed, but this shouldn't be happening. You're too anxious, Thor. Frigga looked at Thor, soothingly saying, we all know how dangerous ether particles are, and we're working on a solution. But Jane can't wait much longer. She's just a mortal. Thor appeared a bit helpless, but soon he raised his head again. Mother, I suspect Malekith isn't dead. Why? Frigga asked. Because only he can influence ether particles. Thor analyzed, Fang Mo destroyed the Dark Elf Mothership, but his emotions seemed off at that time. I suspect Malekith might have escaped while he wasn't paying attention. So, what do you plan to do? Frigga asked. To take the initiative and kill Malekith. Thor swung his hammer energetically, now the enemy is hiding in the shadows, ready to invade Asgard again at any time. Our defense system can't detect them, and Malekith craves ether particles intensely. I can use them to lure him out. But what if you fail? Frigga inquired. I can have Fang Mo accompany me, Thor grinned cunningly, if I fail, do you think Fang Mo would spare him? You little schemer. Frigga also helplessly smiled, well, that's a good idea. If Malekith continues to hide in the shadows, he is indeed a threat to Asgard. But with you going on this mission, remember to bring Loki. Bring Loki? Why? Thor was puzzled. Let him earn some merit. Frigga sighed, you're all my good children. How can I bear to see him locked in a dungeon forever? Loki. Thor's face displayed a complex expression, but he nodded eventually, all right, mother. I'll convince him. Another thing. Frigga's gaze flickered, and she continued, if you have some free time, try spending more time with Fang Mo. Why? Thor was baffled, is there something wrong with him? Is there anyone in this world who can live without feeling lonely? Frigga lightly laughed and shook her head, his soul is too empty, and there's only an echo of silence. As his friend, you should try to help him. But how? Thor looked somewhat lost, he seems perfectly fine, without any need for help. That's for you to figure out. Frigga said, perhaps no one can truly enter his heart, but you can at least try to make him happy. For instance, doing something together, some pranks or something. Mother, what he likes isn't pranks. Hearing this, Thor rubbed his forehead, more than that, I think he enjoys bickering with people who have darker complexions. Chapter 146, Steve Chapter 145. During Thor's heart-to-heart with Frigga, Fang Mo also arrived at the throne and saw Odin, who was dressed in plain clothes. Odin wasn't being too formal and had a friendly chat with Fang Mo, discussing things like observations within the 9 realms. But before long, he shifted the conversation to the main topic. I heard that Frigga has created a container for a Mind Stone for you. Odin calmly asked. That's correct, Fang Mo nodded, there was no need to hide it. When you came to Asgard previously, you didn't use the Bifrost, right? Odin asked again. I heard from Thor that you currently possess the Tesseract, and you used it to come to Asgard. Now, that thing has turned into a space stone, and I accidentally crushed its casing, Fang Mo shrugged. So you've collected 2 Infinity Stones already? Odin looked at Fang Mo with a somewhat complex expression. Are you planning to collect all 6 Infinity Stones? Better than letting them fall into the hands of villains, right? Fang Mo smiled and spread his hands. I'm not using them for anything bad. When I was young and arrogant, I also considered collecting the Infinity Stones. Odin's eyes revealed a nostalgic expression. Back then, I was close to succeeding, but the sacrifice of the Soul Stone made me realize that there are many things more important than power, such as my beloved. So that's why you became enemies with Hela? Fang Mo asked. You indeed know about Hela's existence? Without surprise, Odin continued, yes, because I realized that love is heavier than glory. That's why I clashed with Hela, and reluctantly, I had to seal her away. She did contribute a lot for you, and you just sealed her away like that. Fang Mo rubbed his chin. At the time, I intended to seal her away temporarily and then figure out how to resolve our conflicts. Odin's expression seemed somewhat helpless. However, our estrangement deepened, leading to the current situation. Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you. Suddenly, Odin said, Hela helped me collect the Infinity Stones in the past, and the Mind Stone was what she brought me. So you mean to say that the Mind Stone also influenced Hela? Fang Mo was a bit surprised, these details hadn't been mentioned in the original story. It seemed he had stumbled upon some hidden history. I want to make a deal with you. Odin suddenly spoke up. What? Fang Mo asked. I know you have the capability to collect the Infinity Stones. I can tell you their specific locations and how to obtain them, Odin said. But in return, I want you to destroy Asgard. This is quite an unusual request I'm hearing for the first time. Fang Mo couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. You want me to trade information about the Infinity Stones for you asking me to destroy your own home? Doesn't that sound a bit absurd? I have no other choice, Odin sighed. Since his subordinates and family weren't around, he dropped his pretense and spoke wearily, I've grown old, and Thor hasn't matured enough to take over. Originally, I wanted to make Loki the new king of Jotunheim and Thor the king of Asgard. That way, the two brothers could jointly control the 9 realms. But now, I've messed everything up. With only Thor's strength, he can't defeat Hela and protect the 9 realms. He still has a long way to go. Why don't you just have the fire giant Surtur handle this? Why do I need to be involved? Fang Mo couldn't help but ask. Because you will stop it. Odin explained. Hey! Fang Mo was confused. What do I have to do with this? Because you said Asgard is your haven. Odin shook his head. I don't fully understand it either, but the twilight of the gods disappeared because of your arrival. But Asgard and Hela are linked. If Asgard isn't destroyed, Hela will live forever. Alright, I think I understand. Upon hearing the term haven, Fang Mo finally grasped the situation and rubbed his face in disbelief. Indeed, Asgard was his haven, not just because it was like a paradise in the game world but also because it had some kind of luck-boosting effect. Fang Mo had drawn several times there and received powerful items like the Void Ring. He suspected this was the reason he was unwilling to destroy Asgard. Who would want to destroy their lucky draw paradise? How about this? After pondering, Fang Mo was still unwilling to let go of his lucky spot, so he suggested, why don't you just give me control over how to deal with Hela? You won't have to worry about it anymore. This way, Asgard won't need to be destroyed, right? Is Asgard really that appealing to you? Odin asked with a hint of surprise. After all, it's my lucky spot, Fang Mo smiled. Besides, I'm somewhat interested in Hela. If you're willing to part with your daughter, I can take care of her. Trust me, I have plenty of tricks up my sleeve. Very well. Odin sighed and agreed to Fang Mo's suggestion. I hope you can resolve this major trouble. The interaction between Fang Mo and Odin was relatively pleasant. Although in the original story, Odin might have appeared somewhat arrogant, for some reason, his attitude towards Fang Mo was quite positive. Both sides were satisfied with this exchange. As agreed, Odin told Fang Mo the coordinates of the planet where the cosmic orb, Power Stone, was located, as well as the exact coordinates of planet Vormir. He also explained the specific method to obtain the Soul Stone. He reminded Fang Mo that when all 6 Infinity Stones were gathered, almost any desire could be fulfilled. However, he hoped Fang Mo wouldn't do something he'd regret, specifically referring to the sacrifice ritual of the Soul Stones. Fang Mo made his stance clear on this matter. He was collecting the stones for the sake of his loved ones. After all, he didn't really have anything he cared about in this world. Who would sacrifice something meaningful when they had nothing to give? He doubted the Soul Stones would even recognize such an offering. Chapter 147, Steve Chapter 146, Bonus. The communication with Odin was very pleasant. Not long after, Fang Mo returned to his own room. Due to his good relationship with Asgard, a temporary sleeping bedroom was prepared for him in the palace. Currently, the ether particles are still inside Wanda and Jane Foster. It's well known that ether particles are another form of reality stone, and the infinity stones are something Fang Mo definitely wants to obtain. So, he must remain here and wait. Apart from that, there's one more thing Fang Mo must do. Of course, that's drawing cards. You see, this is the mystical land of Asgard. Previously, in the X-Men world, Fang Mo unlocked the custom Steve mod by touching the Mystique's hand, unlocked the nuclear power technology module through atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs, and unlocked the Geokist mod in Naruto from Obito's Sharingan. In summary, Fang Mo currently possesses 3 lucky cubes. Well, let's take a bath first. To show his devotion to mysticism, Fang Mo decided to take a proper bath and burn incense. After all, if he were to draw something like a portable transmutation table this time, he would truly be invincible. But what Fang Mo didn't expect was, before he even reached the Asgard's hot spring, he bumped into Thor. "Hey, Thor!" Seeing this, Fang Mo greeted directly, "Are you going to take a bath too? By the way, can you go up to the 2nd floor in the Asgard bathhouse?" "What nonsense!" Thor was baffled by Fang Mo's words, but quickly remembered the main issue. "Fang Mo, you arrived just in time. I've been looking for you everywhere." "Looking for me?" Fang Mo was a bit surprised by this and asked directly, "What happened?" "Jane's condition is not good," Thor said anxiously. "Could you go check on her? The mages here in Asgard are powerless against her now, and the ether particles are consuming her life force." "What about Wanda?" Upon hearing this, Fang Mo also inquired, "Is Wanda in the same condition as Jane? Are you talking about another woman?" Thor furrowed his brows slightly. "You might not believe it when I say this, but the woman named Wanda hasn't changed at all. The ether particles within her body are as quiet as a tamed beast." "Oh, I see." Hearing this, Fang Mo nodded. In the original story, Wanda activated her chaos magic through experiments by Hydra and the Mind Stone. However, chaos magic is an ability that can distort probabilities and overwrite reality, and its power is comparable to the Phoenix Force from the X-Men. Though it might not be as strong as defeating celestial beings, it's more than enough to take down Thanos with a few Infinity Stones. Fang Mo believed that compared to the Mind Stone, the ether particles, or reality stones, might be better suited to awakening her abilities. "Let's go, I'll go with you to take a look." After thinking for a moment, Fang Mo decided to check on her first. Thor nodded in agreement and turned around, leading Fang Mo towards Jane Foster's residence. Since this was about treating Jane Foster's illness, Fang Mo took it a bit more seriously. With a thought, a white light shone from his modern clothes, transforming them into a stylish white coat. It wasn't the typical outfit you'd find in a hospital, more like something you'd wear in a laboratory, dissecting room, or a mental hospital. It was less of a lab coat and more of an alternative white trench coat. In any case, they soon arrived at a side chamber. Fang Mo saw Jane Foster lying on a stone bed in pain, with Wanda sitting next to her, looking concerned. "Jane, don't be afraid. I've brought Fang Mo here." Upon seeing this, Thor walked up and held Jane's hand, saying with concern, "He's the most powerful person I know. He can definitely cure you." Thor then turned to Fang Mo to say something. However, when he turned his head, he noticed Fang Mo's coat. Thor was stunned. "Did you change your clothes just now?" "Just a moment ago." Fang Mo said directly, "Since I'm treating an illness and saving a life, I think even though I don't have a medical license, I should at least look professional." "Thor, are you sure he has medical skills?" Jane, lying on the stone bed, also hesitated. She did know Fang Mo. She had witnessed Fang Mo defeat the Destroyer Guard in Old Bridge Town, but she had always assumed Fang Mo was affiliated with the government. She didn't expect him to become friends with her boyfriend, Thor. Despite his appearance, Fang Mo is actually very capable. Thor realized that Jane seemed a bit nervous, so he quickly reassured her, "Do you know Tony Stark? Iron Man? I formed a team with him to protect Earth from enemies. When Stark was seriously ill and on the brink of death, Fang Mo saved him." "That's right. I am a skilled doctor, renowned in the martial world as the Red-Eyed Healer. In the field of gynecology, I am an expert. Ahem, I got the term wrong. Fang Mo cleared his throat and then calmly took out the same blade he used to dissect Stark from behind. What I meant to say is that I practice medicine to save lives and restore health. From the deepest mountains to the foothills, from the highlands of cyanide to the grasslands of manganese, my presence has traversed the north and south of the great river. My name is known in countless households, even that patient with hundreds of sheep in the Jew family calls me a great benefactor. This. Jane listened and instead of relaxing, she became more nervous. You've said so much, but why did you take out a weapon? Nonsense, how is this a weapon? Fang Mo explained directly, you see, as a doctor who practices both Eastern and Western medicine, it's reasonable for me to carry a surgical knife, right? Do you call that thing a surgical knife? Jane heard this and looked at Fang Mo in disbelief. If she hadn't been so weak, she might have sat up from the stone bed. It was fortunate that Thor knew Fang Mo's nature. He pressed Jane down on the bed and said, don't listen to his nonsense. Fang Mo just likes to joke around. Jane, trust me, his medical skills are really remarkable. Sure, Fang Mo replied with a smile, pulling out a few green sticks from behind. He continued, if you believe me, that's all I need. I've even gone against my ancestors for the sake of treating patients, you know. Confused, Jane was forcefully pressed onto the stone bed by Thor's strength, causing her to nervously swallow her saliva. Oh, this is anesthesia and a stabilizing device, Fang Mo explained. Mainly to prevent patients from suddenly running away after hearing the treatment fees. So, I nail the patient to the operating table first and then proceed with the surgery. Jane's face showed disbelief as she heard this. Growing more anxious, she struggled and said, Thor, let go of me. I won't let you Asgardians treat this illness. I want to go back to Earth. Going back to Earth won't help, Fang Mo interjected. From international energy magnate Tony Stark to the current director of SHIELD. Nick Fury, from nuclear physics Dr. Bruce Banner to World War II centenarian Steve Rogers, I have eyes everywhere on Earth. Do you think I, as a master of the four major divine healing arts of the Miao, Tibetan, and Uyghur cultures, would let a mere patient escape from my hands? Jane expressed her worry, but you don't look like you're treating an illness at all. She began to doubt Fang Mo's sanity. Didn't you use that purple sword to defeat that destroyer? And now you're saying it's a surgical knife. Apologizing, Fang Mo said, oh, sorry, I forgot you've seen that sword. He put the sword aside and then pulled out a virtual gold broadsword. You haven't seen this one, have you? Jane examined the broadsword, which was much larger than the previous sword. In response to Jane's skepticism, Fang Mo explained, the previous sword inflicted more pain the more it cut, but this sword instantly causes the patient to have a stroke, heart attack, or brain death. One strike guarantees your complete demise, no resurrection. Thor interjected, all right, Fang Mo, stop scaring her. He sensed Jane trembling as he held her down. Could we show a bit more respect for the lady? Jane isn't a Stark, she's my girlfriend. All right, Fang Mo conceded. He took out a bottle of instant healing potion from his pocket and said, I won't scare her anymore. Anyway, have her drink this first. All right, Thor agreed. Thor recognized the potion. After all, he was there when Stark underwent surgery. Also, didn't Fang Mo use this same potion when Queen Frigga had an accident? He picked up the bottle of pale pink potion and handed it to Jane. Jane, drink this. Skeptical, Jane asked, what is this? He calls this sequence potions. Thor began to explain. Fang Mo couldn't help but interject, oh, this. This thing is called the Kill Life and Death Soup Scatter. It cures 1 and kills 9, and when it cures 1, the whole family suffers. Upon hearing this, Jane tightly sealed her lips. Without saying a word, she stared at Thor, conveying a simple message, go on, keep talking. Do you really think I'll believe you? Chapter 148, Steve Chapter 147. I once encountered a patient who refused to take medicine. Seeing Jane Foster's actions, Fang Mo patiently began to persuade her, her name is Hatsuisa Hyga, and at that time, her condition was quite similar to yours. Both of you were on the verge of death. To treat her, I directly crushed her mandible bone. So, are you saying that if I don't drink it, I won't survive? Upon hearing this, Jane couldn't help but interject, honestly, although the ether particles you mention are dangerous, I find your medical methods even more absurd. By the way, do you really have a medical license? Can I use BS to make one for you? Fang Mo shrugged, if that's not possible, I can use professional tools in Photoshop to create one for you. That's not the same software, cough, cough. Jane tried to retort, but her expression suddenly changed halfway through her sentence. She started coughing forcefully, and black-red particles faintly appeared on her body. Jane. Seeing this, Thor also became anxious. Jane. Are you okay? That thing is absorbing her life force. Wanda, who was nearby, showed a worried expression. If we don't find a way to remove that thing soon, she'll die. But why are you fine? Thor held Jane's shoulder while asking Wanda. I don't really understand what's happening. Wanda looked puzzled. This thing didn't harm me, and I feel like I've become somewhat different. Just like gaining a dark red superpower that can manipulate reality. Fang Mo inquired. Hey. Wanda was momentarily taken aback. How did you know? He's a sorcerer, capable of foreseeing spells. Thor couldn't help but chime in. Well, let's not discuss this now. Fang Mo, what should we do for Jane? With her coughing like this, she needs to take the medicine. Fang Mo walked over, took the instant healing potion from Thor's hand, and poured it directly into Jane's mouth, saying, relieve coughing, boost heart and lung functions. Hey, it tastes like beauty juice. Jane actually wanted to resist, but the ether particles were consuming her life force continuously. She had no strength left to resist Fang Mo's actions and had to reluctantly swallow the unknown liquid. However, what Jane didn't anticipate was that soon after swallowing the liquid, the weakness she felt almost immediately vanished. It was replaced by an unprecedented vitality, and even long-standing physical strain and suboptimal health symptoms disappeared. This. Sensing the change in her body, Jane looked astonished. How is this possible? Jane, do you feel better now? Thor asked with concern. I feel surprisingly good. Jane said somewhat dazedly, but what's the principle behind this? Even if this potion works, it should take some time to take effect, right? Jane, don't try to understand this with Midgardian medicine. Seeing Jane's improved condition, Thor relaxed slightly. Fang Mo is the most powerful magician I've ever seen. The liquid you drank is merely a vessel for magic. It's Fang Mo's magic that truly healed you. So that's how it is. Hearing this, Jane subconsciously nodded. At least you're okay now, Thor said while holding Jane's hand. Thank goodness, I was really worried about you. Mainly because of your friend, Fang Mo, his actions were quite terrifying. Jane said with a hint of helplessness, it should have been a simple matter of drinking a bottle of medicine, but you all escalated it to a surgical level, and then brought out such a big sword. Can I not be scared? But Fang Mo did perform surgery on Stark with that same sword. Thor said curiously, at that time, Stark was on the brink of death, suffering from severe palladium poisoning. Fang Mo used that sword to remove all the lesions from his body. The floor was covered in layers of Stark. It looked scary, but he was indeed cured. I don't want to be treated like that. Jane heard this and felt a shiver down her spine. However, she had just finished speaking when she suddenly felt weak again. The ether particles that had been suppressed began to move on her body's surface. What is going on? Seeing this, Jane became nervous. Wasn't I already cured? You think you can recover just by drinking a bottle of medicine? Do you have red eye disease? Fang Mo spread his hands. Back then, Stark had palladium poisoning, which was relatively straightforward to treat. But your current situation is more complicated. The ether particles. They are one of the Infinity Stones. This illness is more troublesome than late-stage cancer. I can't guarantee your recovery. What? Hearing this, Thor also grew anxious. Fang Mo, are you serious? You can't even assure that you can cure her. Unless Malekith is still alive. Fang Mo shrugged. Dark elves should be more knowledgeable about this thing, but I might have been a bit too hasty and wiped them all out. No, Malekith might still be alive. Thor suddenly said. Hey! Surprised, Fang Mo asked, are you serious? When you destroyed their mothership, it didn't necessarily mean Malekith died. Thor said seriously, under normal circumstances, ether particles shouldn't be this active. Unless they sense their master, the Dark Elves have spent thousands of years adapting their bodies to the ether particles. They are now the perfect hosts for them. So, are you planning to find Malekith? Fang Mo touched his chin. If Malekith was alive, he could guess Thor's plan, to have him figure out how to extract the ether particles from Jane and Wanda. Yes. Thor nodded immediately. Then, I will use my lightning at the right moment to completely destroy this damned thing. All right. Fang Mo glanced at Thor. He knew that the Infinity Stone, the ether particle, couldn't be destroyed so easily by thunder. However, he didn't bother explaining it now. Instead, he followed Thor's lead. If that's the case, let's hurry. I've heard that the Dark Elves have been wanting to plunge the entire universe into darkness. The convergence of the 9 realms is approaching soon. If the ether particles are in front of Malekith, even if he suspects a trap, he won't be able to care too much. That's what I'm thinking too. Thor felt that Fang Mo was indeed his good brother. Their plans were identical, so he said quickly, we can't delay. We must leave immediately. Should we leave now? Fang Mo asked. We still have to wait a bit. Thor looked embarrassed. I need to find a way to bring Loki along. Why bring him? Fang Mo asked, a bit puzzled. Are you in love with him? After all, he's my brother. Thor sighed. I can't keep him imprisoned forever, can I? Our mother hopes that my brother and I can get along harmoniously and lovingly. I don't want to have a strained relationship with Loki. This is an opportunity. All right then. Fang Mo waved his hand. You go find Loki. I'll continue to treat patients. Okay, I'll be back soon. Thor nodded and then said goodbye to Jane before leaving quickly. After Thor left, Fang Mo took out a green stick and showed a friendly smile to Jane Foster. Come on, it's time to continue the treatment. This stick of yours. Oh, this one? This is the director's gift to me from the Great Iron Club Hospital. Fang Mo waved the green artisan spirit handle in his hand. Actually, for regular patients, I usually treat them as if they were gods, adopting the approach Jesus would take. But because of your special status, we'll go with a different treatment method. As he spoke, Fang Mo handed the stick to Jane Foster. Here, hold it and give it a try. All right. Jane wanted to complain a little, but she didn't know where to start. Considering that Fang Mo's potion did indeed work, she reluctantly reached out and grabbed the stick. In the moment she grabbed the stick, a warm, cool sensation flowed into her body along the stick. Initially weakened by the consumption of life force due to the ether particles, she suddenly felt a boost in her spirit. It was as if her entire being had become more awake. What is this? Jane looked surprised at the green stick in her hand. A magic little flying stick. Fang Mo casually explained, it should help you hold on for a while longer. Clearly, Fang Mo was once again pulling the patient's leg. This wasn't a magical stick at all, it was actually a handle component of a tinker construct. However, worth mentioning was that it was made with emerald, possessing the attribute terra firma. This attribute allowed the holder, while gripping a tool or wearing armor, to continuously regenerate health. This effect was slower than that of a healing potion but had the advantage of no consumption. In theory, it could restore health without interruption for 24 hours. Jane's current situation wasn't due to injuries but rather more like a permanent negative state, a constant loss of health. Relying solely on potions wouldn't be sustainable. According to the original work, the ether particles would also protect the host, which meant Fang Mo couldn't just remove them through surgery. Although Fang Mo had brought a bunch of potions, it was wasteful for Jane to keep drinking them. Therefore, giving her a stick and a one-time solution felt more efficient. When Malekith extracted the ether particles later, everything would be resolved. Chapter 149, Steve. Chapter 148. Concerned about Jane's physical condition, Thor didn't delay for too long and quickly brought Loki out. Loki on this side unexpectedly looked quite happy, with a joyful smile on his face as he chatted incessantly with Thor. Hey, brother, this doesn't seem like your style. What's with the secret operation? Are you sure you don't want to solve it directly with force? Blasting everything into bits with your sexy little hammer and lightning, that's the way to show your bravery and dominance. Speaking of this, Loki suddenly started using his illusion abilities again, turning into an Asgardian soldier for a while, then into Sif, and finally into Odin. Well, I think our family relationship is better now. Probably due to being confined for a while, Loki did seem a bit erratic at the moment. After turning into Odin, he smiled triumphantly at Thor and said, look at me now, Thor, my child, do you still want to defy the will of King Father? If I were you, I'd keep my mouth shut. Thor was clearly annoyed by Loki's antics and even began to doubt whether taking Loki out was the right choice, or else you'll have a taste of your own medicine. No, brother, you need to understand one thing. Loki's face lit up with a pleased smile. Now you're the one asking me for help. It's hard to imagine the mighty thunder god Thor needing to humble himself and ask for help. On that note, don't you need to provide me with a weapon? Loki continued chattering. What about my favorite little dagger? Where did you hide them? They were a gift from Mother. Don't tell me you threw them all away just because I lightly stabbed you. Thor didn't say anything, he just quickened his pace. Soon, the two of them walked out of the Asgardian dungeon and followed a path to the side palace of the palace, heading towards Jane Foster's current residence. I heard you made many new friends on Earth, it's a pity I didn't get to participate. Loki shrugged, teasingly saying, it seems you really like Earth. Not only did you find an Earthling girlfriend, but you also enjoy making friends with them. I thought your friendship with the weird creature, Fang Mo, was enough. I heard you formed an alliance with a soldier who wields a shield? Ha, brother, your taste is getting stranger. But you haven't told me the soldier's name yet. But I know a lot, even if you don't want to tell me. His name is Steve, right? Seriously, you're becoming more. As Loki was speaking, Thor directly pushed open the door, and the two of them entered Jane Foster's residence. Loki looked up and saw Fang Mo not far away, freezing in place. In just an instant, it seemed like all the joy disappeared from Loki's face. Fang Mo was currently maintaining his weapons. Imperomite / Void Blade / Ender Sword Broadblade, Western Sword, Dagger, Frying Pan, and a series of terrifying objects were inserted into the ground behind him. Did I just hear you mention Steve? Fang Mo wiped his blade absent-mindedly with a soft cloth, casually looking up at Loki, is that so? Loki, upon seeing Fang Mo, became visibly nervous. He remembered how Fang Mo had threatened him on the Rainbow Bridge, and almost instinctively took 2 steps back. He turned to Thor and said, brother, I don't want to help you anymore. Can you put me back in the dungeon? If you keep quiet, I might consider letting Fang Mo keep your corpse intact. After Loki had been pestering Thor all the way, he finally found an opportunity to strike back. He scared Loki with his words. If you do that, Mother will be heartbroken. Loki quickly retorted. Mother almost died before. Thor glanced at Loki, then said directly, she's recovering now, and she doesn't have time to deal with you. What? Hearing this, Loki suddenly froze. Are you telling the truth? Oh, indeed. Fang Mo knew the original story and knew that Loki genuinely cared for his mother. To make Loki behave, he purposely spoke up. The Kur's warrior unexpectedly arrived at the side hall, and the goddess was no match for that thing. She was stabbed from the lower back to the front chest by the warrior's blade. The blade was imbued with powerful dark magic, and the goddess fell on the spot. If it weren't for Fang Mo arriving just in time, Mother would undoubtedly be dead. Thor nodded and said, Fang Mo used up a lot of treasures to save Mother. Fortunately, Mother is safe now. The whole Asgard owes Fang Mo a favor. Loki didn't speak, but his fists clenched tightly together. Due to excessive force, his knuckles turned unusually pale. Yes, in the original story, Loki was imprisoned for a long time, leading to resentment toward Asgard. So when the Kur's warrior escaped from the dungeon, he intentionally told the warrior to take the left staircase, thinking it would lead to chaos and eventually Odin would kill him. Although Odin would probably kill the Kur's warrior immediately, he would surely be furious about the chaos caused. After all, would he not be angry when such a mess was stirred up? Loki just wanted to create some minor chaos, but he never expected that the Kur's warrior would collaborate with Malekith and attack from the direction of the Rainbow Bridge. Odin directly rushed out to confront him, unaware that his home was being stolen. What happened next was quite simple. Goddess Frigga wasn't a match for the Kur's warrior, and she was stabbed. Honestly, after hearing the conversation between the two, Loki felt a chill running through his body. He could hardly bear to think about what might happen if he caused a great disaster. Although he didn't say it aloud, he truly cared for his family, especially his mother Frigga. If he caused her death, he'd probably fall apart, wouldn't he? Count me in on this. After thinking it over, Loki took a deep breath and spoke seriously to Thor, those guys, they must pay. What do you plan to do? Thor asked. First, use a plan to lure out the leader named Malekith, and have him extract the ether particles from your girlfriend's body. Then kill them all, just as you told me in the dungeon. Loki gritted his teeth. After that, use the power of the Rainbow Bridge to destroy the entire Vanaheim and wipe out the Dark Elves completely. Old habits die hard, hey. After hearing all this, Thor's eyes twitched with a slight smile. Have you ever thought about why you were imprisoned? How can you compare the two? Loki said, they almost killed Mother. Is it too much to wipe out their entire race and their world? Father often reminds us of the importance of love and peace. Thor paused and suddenly remembered the scene of Frigga lying in a pool of blood. He gripped the handle of Mjolnir and began to tighten his grip subconsciously, but this time, I actually think you might be right. Really? Loki heard this and also showed a smile. So you see, the Rainbow Bridge. But the Rainbow Bridge won't work. Thor shook his head. Father may not allow us to destroy Vanaheim, and he certainly won't allow us to leave Asgard. That's why I brought you out. You seem to know some secret paths between the 9 realms. We can't use the Rainbow Bridge. Upon hearing this, Loki's disappointment was palpable. He did know about some secret paths between the 9 realms. Sneaking into Vanaheim wasn't an issue. But the problem was that if he wanted to destroy an entire world, he could only think of using the Rainbow Bridge, that enormous weapon. And if the Rainbow Bridge couldn't be used, how could he make the Dark Elves pay? Loki pondered and then instinctively looked at Fang Mo. Fang Mo noticed Loki's gaze and smiled, asking, what's up? Can't use the Rainbow Bridge, so you're scheming something involving me. How can you call it a scheme? Upon hearing this, Loki quickly put on a polite yet slightly embarrassed smile. You're not like those rigid righteous folks. Otherwise, if you heard Thor and me planning to destroy the world, you would have spoken up to stop us, right? Mainly because Odin and I are on good terms now, even considering each other as brothers. Plus, Vanaheim is one of the 9 realms, like a study in my brother's house. Fang Mo spread his hands and continued, imagine if I were playing with my brother's kid, and he burnt down his study without a second thought. Does that sound reasonable? What kind of comparison is that? Upon hearing this, Loki suddenly felt smaller in front of Fang Mo. However, Thor didn't think that deeply. He looked surprised at Fang Mo and said, I didn't expect you could actually destroy the world. It's just a matter of time, Fang Mo shrugged. He wasn't lying. In another world, Fang Mo might need to think twice, especially since he hadn't figured out how to make an onsen machine yet. However, in the Marvel Universe, destroying the world wasn't that troublesome, considering he had 2 Infinity Stones. The Mind Stone might be a bit unreliable, but due to the Void Ring, Fang Mo unexpectedly had a high affinity with the Space Stone. After all, the Space Stone was an endless source of energy. While it might not be as mighty as the Power Stone, finding a way to harness that energy would still make world destruction feasible. Not to mention that the Space Stone and the Void Ring could amplify each other's powers. In any case, with Loki around, the general plan was quickly set. Since Fang Mo didn't know Vanaheim's exact coordinates, Loki took on the task of finding a secret passage there. As for the battle specifics, Fang Mo would handle it. He had been itching for a fight for a while. The enemies he encountered were all weaklings, except for the Black King Sebastian, who at least piqued his interest. With Malekith having an Infinity Stone, he should provide some entertainment. If the opponent turned out to be strong, Fang Mo could accidentally destroy the entire Vanaheim during the battle, and that should pass, right? As for Thor in the end. Honestly, it seemed like Thor wouldn't be of much use on this trip to Vanaheim. So, Loki and Fang Mo discussed it and decided that when Fang Mo went on his wild killing spree, Thor would be responsible for a follow-up frenzy behind him. Chapter 150, Steve Chapter 149. Different from the original work. Because of Fang Mo's influence now, Loki and Thor's plan was implemented quickly. The plan went very smoothly, even the 4 warriors of Asgard's and Heimdall from the original work didn't appear. It was just Thor holding Loki with one hand, carrying Mjolnir and flying directly towards a certain sea area to find a secret passage. As for Fang Mo, at this moment, he leisurely followed behind the two. At this moment, he held 2 black hole grenades in his hand. These things were created by the Dark Elves, and strictly speaking, they should be considered some kind of high-tech items with almost unbelievable power. In the original work, the Kur's warriors almost had to hang Thor up to fight him. Isn't that amazing? Yet, a grenade just took him out instantly. You can imagine how powerful this thing is. Fang Mo casually pulled out a black hole grenade and tossed it into the air. The black hole grenade exploded in mid-air, the dull grey shockwave expanded outward, turning into a spherical force field several meters in diameter. Then, it rapidly collapsed inward. Countless chaotic gravitational currents churned and compressed. In the end, everything, including the air inside the collapsed force field, was compressed into a point, and then it vanished with a snap into nothingness, creating a small vacuum area temporarily. A strong wind roared, and the surrounding air quickly filled the area. Wow, this is amazing! Seeing this, Fang Mo sighed in admiration. To defeat someone in a fight without leaving a single trace of remains, that's great. Now no one can say I fight like a sadist. It's clean and sanitary, my friends. That thing is dangerous, Fang Mo. Thor in front also noticed the black hole grenade. With such a loud noise, he turned and warned Fang Mo, no matter how strong your body is, you can't resist the power of space. Be careful. It's all right, spatial skills can't harm me. Hearing Thor's kind reminder, Fang Mo also explained a little to him, which was the truth. Currently, he still held the Space Stone, which in the Marvel Universe essentially meant being a master of space. Other spatial attacks couldn't hurt Fang Mo. So Fang Mo pulled out another black hole grenade and tossed it to the side. With the sound of the explosion, another terrifying collapsing force field appeared in mid-air. Countless gravitational lines were twisted into a chaotic frenzy inside the force field, erasing all tangible matter. Fang Mo observed these gravitational turbulence from close range. It's well known that gravity is a very subtle thing, closely related to space to some extent. Fang Mo now possessed both the Void Ring and the Space Stone. As mentioned earlier, because Fang Mo kept traversing various worlds, as time went on, he absorbed more and more essence berries. Even he himself couldn't remember how many sets of essence berries he had swallowed. Essence berries could comprehensively enhance Fang Mo's abilities, including his strength and precision. Back in the Naruto world, Fang Mo had deduced the repulsive force field and used it to create the inward compressing reverse Shinra Tensei to kill Danzo. Now, with higher precision and the Space Stone, he could further develop the abilities of the Void Ring. Fang Mo carefully recalled the operation principle of the black hole grenade. Feeling the twisted structure of gravity within the formed collapsing force field, Fang Mo slowly spread his palm. The Void Ring and Space Stone emitted a faint light simultaneously. Above his palm, space suddenly twisted slightly, followed by the appearance of a twisting gravitational turbulence. This gravitational turbulence resembled a wriggling worm, its black-purple body corresponding to the color of the universe's backdrop. Fang Mo looked at this gravitational turbulence and felt its violent and chaotic nature. Suddenly, he had a strange realization. In that instant, Fang Mo felt as if he were in an endless universe, with Asgard beneath his feet, distant meteorites and even more distant galaxies and the Milky Way. Everything intertwined in a vast network, attracting and restraining each other. Each thread constituting this vast network was formed by the gravitational fields emitted by these celestial bodies. Fang Mo had an epiphany. Following that, he clenched his fist. A translucent pale grey force field instantly enveloped his fist. Fang Mo slightly narrowed his eyes. This translucent white force field slowly turned silver, then grey, and finally directly transformed into an ink-black color. Around the outer edge of this ink-black sphere, a dazzling halo of light appeared. This was a phenomenon of visual separation. The formidable force field surrounding Fang Mo's fist distorted space to the point where light accumulated on the outside, leaving the interior pitch black. It was as if his fist had turned into a terrifying black hole. But in reality, it wasn't a black hole. With his current power, Fang Mo couldn't create true singularities and black holes using the Void Ring. What enveloped his fist was just a terrifying gravitational turbulence. However, even so, the power of this punch was quite frightening. Across the entire Earth, there were no more than 3 people who could withstand this punch. And that's taking into account Captain America's attributes. Otherwise, even someone like Ancient One wouldn't be able to withstand it, not to mention Hulk. But that wasn't all. As mentioned earlier, Fang Mo had a strong combat awareness. After developing a new use for the Void Ring, he quickly extrapolated from it. Fang Mo contemplated for a moment, then suddenly waved his hand towards the sea surface. A black-purple lightning shot towards a reef on the sea surface. The area hit by the light was instantly torn apart and annihilated. Not melted or evaporated in the traditional sense, but shattered into atomic dust by some pure force. The light quickly disappeared, leaving behind a deep abyss-like pit on the reef. Wow, a gravity beam, hey! Fang Mo laughed and teased himself, seems like I'm King Ghidorah after all. Next time I go to the monster universe, I'll have to do a nucleic acid test for Godzilla myself. Can't let Kong steal my spotlight. However, just as Fang Mo was about to continue researching new skills, Thor suddenly shouted ahead. Fang Mo, stop researching these for now. Thor was rapidly approaching a mountain ahead, it looks like we're about to reach Vanaheim. Get ready to bring Jane and Wanda over. Oh, okay. Fang Mo nodded, realizing that Asgard was quite small. They had flown to the edge of the map in no time. Thinking this, Fang Mo directly held the space stone, and a blue-purple spatial gate appeared beside him. Then, with a wave of his hand, he pulled Jane and Wanda, who were still in the palace, out through the gate, using a gravitational field to carry them forward. Ah, ah, ah! The sudden scene frightened the two women, and they screamed. Wanda was all right, but Jane was a bit overwhelmed. She almost dropped the green gemstick from her hand in nervousness. However, before the two women could scream for long, they had already crashed into a mountain wall. Soon, the surrounding space became unstable, and finally, everything dimmed. The next moment, they were in a different time and space. Everywhere here were broken spacecraft wreckage and collapsed metal buildings. A hidden sun hung in the sky, its rays blocked. It appeared like an eternal eclipse. The whole world seemed dim and desolate. Thick, heavy grey-yellow clouds floated in the sky from time to time, obscuring the already scarce sunlight. This made the place even darker. This was Vanaheim, the dwelling place of the Dark Elves according to legend. Now, it was a desolate ruin after the war. Fang Mo descended slowly with the two women, and Thor also landed in front of them. Loki smartly let go of Thor's arm and stood beside him, surveying the surroundings. All right, it's time to prepare. Thor spoke, anyway, let's start implementing Loki's plan. Jane, Wanda, you might need to endure some discomfort for a while. We need to make Malekith believe Loki's scheme. Can't you just praise me a bit? Loki couldn't help but say, if you think my plan is useless, you can charge forward and fight Malekith yourself, without using my scheme. I think the word scheme is appropriate. Fang Mo smiled at Loki, it's a pity you're not a woman, otherwise, I would call you the scheme queen. But my magic still has room for improvement, who knows, maybe one day, I'll master the gender-swapping spell. Gender-bending magic, and then I'll make you taste it. I think this is more like a curse compared to magic. Loki, hearing Fang Mo's words, suddenly felt a chill. I'm just giving you a heads up, not seeking your opinion. Fang Mo chuckled and looked at Loki, then reached into a spatial portal and pulled out a blue box, tossing it to Loki, here, take this. What's this? Loki instinctively caught the box, and his eyes lit up, oh, casket of ancient winters. This is much better than my little dagger. Anyway, just continue with the original plan. Find a way to extract the ether particles. Fang Mo continued, after the ether particles are extracted, you two are responsible for protecting Jane and Wanda. I'm going to thoroughly enjoy Malekith. As he finished speaking, Fang Mo's figure gradually faded, and he completely disappeared without a trace.
Thanks for listening.